Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where Karen learns why you should never be rude to your neighbor. Karen demands I rebuild my fence, so I tore it down instead. About 5 or 6 years ago, I built a fence in my backyard. I talked to my neighbors and we decided on a good place to build the fence. We knew an approximate property line based on some survey pins, but we were both too cheap to pay for a surveyor. We shook hands and I built the fence. It was a great deal for my neighbors. I paid for everything, built the fence, and all they had to do was give me a thumbs up when it was done. Then a year later, they sold their house. That meant I got a new neighbor. More specifically, I got Anne. Anne is from the big city. Anne was a realtor. Anne had flipped 8 houses in 12 years. Anne loved this new house and planned on staying for a long time. And Anne had a dog. Razzie was a German Shepherd mix that spent most of the day outside while Anne went to work. Razzie was aggressive. Razzie also, as Anne once told me, loved to chew on furniture. That's why Razzie stayed outside so much. About 6 months after Anne moved in, I saw a surveyor walking around in my neighborhood and he was paying special attention to my backyard. The next day, Anne showed up at my front door with a stack of papers and asked me if I was going to pay her for the 9 inches that my fence was encroaching on her property. I explained my handshake deal with the last neighbors, but she was having no part of it. She wanted the fence moved or she wanted money, no discussions. She had spoken to her lawyer friend and was perfectly happy to take me to court over the fence. She told me, "I don't know how you guys do it out here in the sticks, but where I come from, we follow the rules." So I got rid of the fence. The next day, I unscrewed the horizontal rails from the brackets, stacked the fence panels up against my garage, and I pulled up the fence posts with my work van. About a week later, Anne shows up at my door again. She wants to know when I'm going to be building a new fence. Turns out, without my portion of the fence, she's not been able to let Razzie out unattended for fear that he will run away, attack something, or that he could get hurt. She also told me that she can't keep him in the house all day while she's at work anymore. Her furniture and carpet are all but ruined. I told her, "Well, Anne, I'm not going to be rebuilding the fence. I don't want any legal trouble, and the best way to stay out of trouble is to not build near your property." The look on her face was priceless. I thought she was going to cry. She probably did when she got back home. She tried to protest, saying that she really needed the fence back and she would even help pay for the new one. She told me how much she loved the style and aesthetic of the old one. It was just the location that she had a problem with. I stood firm. There would be no new fence. She never got a fence. She made half-hearted attempts to put up some bamboo fencing, but Razzie tore through that stuff like wet newspaper. Eventually, I sold my place and moved away. I took the old fence panels with me, and I still look at them every time I let my dog out in the morning. Am I the jerk for telling my ex that she chose our kids over our relationship, and it's not my problem that she's now lonely? My ex and I had our first kid when we were 26. We met at a bar celebrating our 21st birthday. We literally are the exact same age. She changed. Being a mom became her only identity. Our second baby, when we were 28, compounded it. She was a mom and not a wife, and not even herself, not the woman that I met, fell in love with, and married. All she wanted to do was kid stuff, kid movies, kid TV, kid books, everything. If I wanted to drop the kids off and take her to the farmer's market, she would say no, that the kids love the farmer's market. We had to take them with us. They were 3 and 1 at the time. They did not love the farmer's market. If anything, the older one loved the mini donuts. And she couldn't stand to hear them cry, so she let them sleep in our room all the time. When I put my foot down, she would start crying about how mean I was. When the kids finally outgrew that, she would let them come into our room without knocking. I put a lock on the door and she took it off. We went to counseling. She went to counseling. Nothing ever changed. She said that it would be different when the kids were older, but it never changed. I left when the kids were 9 and 11. I had planned and paid for a trip for our 15th anniversary. We were going to Thailand like we always planned when we were younger. She changed the plans. She canceled with her parents watching the kids. We went as a family to Disney World instead. We had been the year before and the kids loved it so much. I lasted another 6 months and then I left. I pay child support. I pay spousal support. I'm there for the kids all the time. I enjoy my custody time. I go to their extracurriculars on the days that I don't have them. I have rooms for them in my house. I met someone new a year later. We got married a year after that. We had our first 2 years after that. She's an excellent stepmom and the kids are polite and friendly with her. They were grown up and they had a mom, so she's more of a trusted adult. The kids are 16 and 14 now, and they're sick of mom's attention. They're spending more and more of their time at my house. I love having them over, and here they understand what privacy and personal space mean. My ex is lonely. She devoted her life to her kids, and she expected them to be around her forever, I guess. She has dated other men, but she refuses to prioritize them in any way over the kids. An example, one guy lasted 6 months. He wanted to take her away for the weekend. She couldn't because the younger one had a soccer game. It was my weekend. The guy had checked with me that I would be attending and not just leaving the kid at the field. I was. She refused to go and showed up at the game without him. That was the last I saw him. She's getting angry and bitter that I left her alone to go start a new family with my new wife. I told her that she wanted that life, that I gave her every opportunity to be my partner, and she said that she would rather be a mom. She said that wasn't true. I asked her to prove me wrong, to tell me when she put our relationship above the slightest inconvenience to our kids. She couldn't do it. I reminded her that she passed up a weekend with her boyfriend to go to a soccer game. She said it was important. I said that adult relationships are also important. My wife thinks that I was harsh, but fair. Not the jerk. As the kid of a woman like your ex, I got to see firsthand what her decisions to never ever leave my side to do anything with my dad ever did to their marriage. It was horrible and it really hurt him. It was also incredibly suffocating for me, and I resented the heck out of being the whole beginning and end of her world. It's great that your kids are able to see and appreciate the difference in lifestyles and choosing to spend more time with you. She's going to be in for a world of serious hurt if she doesn't learn and refuses to back off of them once they're ready to leave the nest. Not the jerk. I feel so bad for your kids when they start dating and she gets jealous, and when they go off to college and she follows them, and when they start having families and she oversteps with their kids and spouses. Put your kids in therapy to help them deal with their mother, who's obviously not okay. I, 28 male, have chased my fiancé who's 27 female all my life. Now she's cheating. I, male 28, have loved my fiancé, female 27, since the day that I have known what love is. We met when I was 15 and she was 14. She was beautiful, like someone you'll only see once in a mall and remember her even after 10 years. I'm sure everyone has at least once seen such a girl. She was also sweet and fun. She had many issues at her home which affected a lot of her life choices, but you'll never see her in a bad mood. But she was materialistic, and she never denied that. She always wanted good things. I liked her for it because she wasn't pretentious or fake. When I first interacted with her, she made it clear she will only marry a doctor. She also had good reasons and a story for it, and I do acknowledge that. I accepted it. See, I wasn't always very good at my studies, but I wasn't dumb either, so I gave it my everything. We live in India, so if you're a middle-class kid, you have to pass a crazy hard competitive exam to get into a good government-run medical school, because frankly, we didn't have money to get into a private one. I had to try 2 years after graduating high school to finally get into a medical school. All while I was stuck at home trying to study, and she was doing a degree in arts after high school. When I was preparing for the entrance, she was just a friend. Not too friendly, but not too distant either. She made it clear it was nothing more than friendship. I also heard about her dating other people, but I didn't care because in my mind, I always thought of marrying her eventually. I know this sounds creepy, but it is how my mind worked. So when I finally got into medical school, she changed. She got more friendly with me. She broke up with her boyfriend, and then we started dating after a while. Medical school is long, so when I was in school, she had already graduated and was teaching in a secondary school, which was not a very stable or high-paying job. But she stuck with me all through the medical school. After I graduated, I joined a hospital. Pretty good pay. Although I had long shifts, the pay was good. During this period, she told her parents about me. Her parents were pretty happy too, because in India, everyone wants a doctor son-in-law. We have been engaged for a year now. We would have married already, but I'm doing post-graduation in dermatology, which is how I found out about her cheating actually. And it's quite hectic to even attend someone else's marriage, let alone be mine. 2 weeks ago, I saw my fiancé had red spots, mostly on her back. I checked everything and I diagnosed it possibly could be bedbug bites. She panicked, but I just told her that there are no issues because we'll just clean our house and it won't happen again. So we checked both our places. She has rented a house near her school and I have a hostel room that I stay in, although I mostly live over at her place. We didn't find any bedbugs, so I told her I must have diagnosed wrong and I told her we should get her some blood tests. She was very hesitant because she's afraid of needles, but I said it was necessary. So I told her to come to the hospital the day after when she gets free from her school. The next day, she came to the hospital from her school with a male colleague. I had met him earlier, so I was cordial with him. We got her blood sample in, and I started to talk with this colleague of hers. I asked him where he lives, and he told me where. That just rang a huge bell in my head, because you see, in OPD, we see many patients from the same area having insect bites. The bites can be of insects or even bedbugs, but that particular area has a swamp area which gets dried out in the summers, and this happens to the whole area. It's a common, regular thing, and everyone in our dermatology department knows it. So I just blurted out, "Do you have any red swellings on your body or anything?" He said, "Yeah, a little." Just after he said that, he went back on his words and said, "No, it's just mosquitoes." But it had already registered in my mind. After he left, I took my fiance back home, but I had this feeling that really sucked. The next day, I saw her reports, and it turned out that she had no issues. So I just called her, and I told her that I had found no issues. I just took insect bite meds for her and I gave them to her. In 2 to 3 days, she was all right, but I couldn't get this feeling out of my mind. So one night, I checked her phone when she was asleep, and I went through it. I had never done this in my life. I found nothing, but I couldn't get through this nagging feeling. The next day, I took a break from my shift, and I went near her school, and I followed her when she left. She went straight home. When I saw this, I just scolded myself for being such a jerk and being so suspicious. But for the next 3 days, I kept doing the same. On the third day, I saw her leave with that colleague, and I saw them go to his house. This is where my world shattered. I've loved her all my life. I changed my life for her. She wanted to marry a doctor, so I became a doctor. Didn't she say that she would be with someone who was more successful than her? Then what the heck was she doing with this bum? I have nothing against teachers, but he literally earns in 4 months what I earn in 1 day. Why the heck did I work this hard? Why the heck did I love her so much? Since that day, I've said nothing to her, because I don't know what to do. I've built my whole life around her. I just keep asking myself, why am I not enough for her? I know I'm not super handsome, but I'm not that bad looking either. She's way out of my league, I know, but I've worked all my life to be enough for her. If this is what she wants, why has she stayed with me all these years? You know, I have had no issues with her ever. She has been the perfect girlfriend. She cares for me. She supports me. I've literally slept on her lap for hours while she sat there stroking my hair. So what is this now? Where did this go wrong that she has to go with someone else? What were the last 8 years? I know this is getting long, but I have nowhere to go to. I don't have many close friends because she was my everything, because my life revolves around her. I can't tell this to my family because I don't want anyone else to find out. What do I do? I know it might be that no one sees this, but what am I supposed to do? Update. People who have given me genuine advice, thank you. I'll try to keep in mind everything you've said. I have also offended people by disrespecting teachers. I'm sorry for that. I was feeling very low and the negativity just came out. I didn't think a man feeling low or having low self-esteem and saying that honestly here will bring so much negative emotions from people. Some people have been outright hostile and mistreating to me. I do understand that people don't like a man being weak. I'll try to strengthen that about me. Yes, I do accept I'm coming off as naive, obsessed, and whatnot. Emotional attachment of 13 years does not go away in a single day. If it does for you, then maybe I'm not as strong as you. But all this negativity has at least numbed me. I do think this will help me to confront her and face up my life. I didn't think I was emotionally strong enough to do that, so I guess it has helped me a little. Update. I talked to her. She accepted that she's cheating. We talked. She didn't object to anything I told her. She has told me that she will respect whatever I decide. It was a messy thing. I'm not in a state of mind to describe anything more. I think this will be my last post here, so I'm making some things clear. I've already missed a lot of hospital duties. We're not allowed to do that. I'm surely going to face the consequences, but I want to take a short break. I know people are going to blast me for it, but I'm not going to dump her right now. This is not how it works here in India. If I do that, even if nobody else knows why, everyone is going to point fingers at her and brand her all sorts of names. Societal pressure is a big thing in India. I don't wish it on anyone, even if they were my enemy. A lot of you have pointed out my flaws, that I'm obsessive, spineless, a stalker, and many more things. I acknowledge my flaws. I'll go to therapy and try to work on it. I accept I shouldn't base my whole life on a single person. Also, I have painted her way too negatively in my previous post. I was low and I shouldn't have done that. I accept it. She is materialistic, I don't deny that. But she has never been a gold digger. She has never demanded anything expensive. Furthermore, whenever I try to buy her something expensive, she shouts at me not to. She is materialistic in the sense that she wants good assets in our life, which we can both use for a long time. I'm sorry if I misled everyone and didn't make it clear. Her wanting to marry a doctor, she has a good reason for it, which I had pointed out in that post. I know it and I accept it. No, I'm not going to share it because it's very personal. She's never been exploitative or manipulative before. She has always been very devoted and has always put me first. That's why this incident was so heartbreaking. I'm not defending her mistakes, because even she didn't do that. She accepted. I'm also looking to accept all the mistakes that I've made. No, she didn't blame me. I'm doing this on my own because I received so much feedback here. And no, neither me nor her have ever been mistreating in our relationship. Everyone has small fights. That's all we ever had too. I'm looking forward to improving myself mentally, emotionally, and physically. I have not been emotionally strong as many of you have pointed out. I hope to work on that. Thank you. She never actually liked you in this way. She just liked your devotion to her and the prospects you offered. This is obvious from her not being interested in you until you went to med school. She was using you to arrange her life in a way she wanted, but her heart wasn't there, so she was free to find others to be interested in. You deserve better, but before you try dating again, please consider therapy to address this whole mess and this obsession with her. She's attracted to your job, bruh, not you. Go back on the dating market. As a young doctor, you will have an abundance of choices. The best revenge is your happiness and success. She has no respect for you now, and that won't change. Have some self-respect for yourself, dude. Get married, and you'll be in a long-term suffering. You're a doctor. You're gonna have a great time in the dating market. All the best. Until you get help to fix what caused you to chase after someone so superficial, this will happen again. Learn to be a better judge of character. My ex-wife keeps trying to get back together with me. Doesn't really sound like a big problem, right? Well, I wish I could just plain tell her to buzz off and never bother me again. There is the matter of us having 2 daughters and sharing custody, so I can't excise her from my life on a permanent basis. Not without removing our daughters, too. We married fairly early in our lives, back when we were 20, and we had been dating for 3 years before that. Our daughters were born in the very first year of our marriage, and there were some complications, which meant my ex-wife would have difficulty conceiving again. Didn't matter to me at the time, because I was just glad she made it healthy and fine through the whole ordeal, and that we already had 2 beautiful daughters to love and raise up. The marriage lasted 9 years, ended when I divorced her for cheating. I have absolutely no tolerance for it, and I don't believe in forcing myself to suffer needlessly for crap that wasn't my fault to begin with. While this might sound incredulous to some folks, any love I had for my ex-wife was pretty much destroyed when I found out about her cheating and the details behind it. So yeah, this isn't a threat about me moving on from her. I've done that 7 years ago. I don't even hate her. I just don't care about what goes on in her life unless it concerns our daughters. The problem is that it's only me that's moved on from the whole thing. My ex-wife, her family, and even our daughters have kept trying to get us back together, even though I've made it plain for everyone that I have no interest in ever doing that. Me not dating at first for a few years after the divorce might have been giving them false hope, but I sure as heck wasn't going to jump into another relationship so soon after that, not with our daughters to look after. They were my #1 priority, besides my own issues which stemmed from my ex's cheating. Those issues, by the by, got resolved with the help of friends, family, and some counseling. So yeah, that's over and done with. I have no issue in communicating with our daughters, none whatsoever. Anything else? They can understand, it's just fine. There's never been any fighting, no yelling, no nonsense teenage rebellion, thus far. No tantrums thrown and so on. Pretty great, right? Except this whole thing. They know about her cheating on me, and it was their mother in fact who told them about it, some 3 years ago or so. I imagine she's been feeding them some kind of BS since then, and I've asked her countless times to stop with it, that it wasn't helping anyone, that it only prevented them from moving on. But the ex-wife didn't stop. She apparently just got subtler about it. In all the years since we divorced, she hasn't dated or hooked up with anyone else. While I suppose she thinks that's admirable, I don't. To be honest, I find it kind of insulting. When we were married, she cheated on me, but now she's just fine going without hooking up for 7 years? Whatever, not that it matters. While I could ignore the occasional mentions of their mother, of how well she looks, of them showing me photos they took with her, obviously all dolled up for my sake, it's gotten worse lately. Why? Because I have a girlfriend. Clemens is not the first since the divorce, but she is the most serious relationship I've had since my marriage ended. She also happens to be 8 years my junior. Before getting together as a couple, we knew about each other for 4 years through a shared hobby. So basically, it was a gradual transition from being friends to being involved with each other. I can honestly say that I love this woman. It was a surprise to me when I realized that, because while I didn't really want to admit it to myself, I was afraid for a time that what my ex-wife did to me damaged me on some fundamental level and rendered me incapable of ever truly loving someone else like I once did her. Initially, my daughters had very little to say about our relationship, much like they didn't comment anything on the previous 2 I had post-divorce. But then they started coming home, ahead of the schedule we set up in advance, and they'd find me and Clemence together. Nothing compromising. Then came the grumbling. Why is she here? Then came, it's not fair to mom what you're doing, as if I was actually doing this solely to spite or hurt their mother. So I set them down and talked, and talked, but they're just not getting it. They simply won't give up on this idea of theirs where I get back with their mother. Clemence, thank God, has been understanding and isn't upset by their behavior. She's basically saying to give them time, but I kind of doubt that will work. It hasn't so far, so I have no idea why more time would change anything. Anyway, since I'm really all out of ideas, I figured I might as well ask you folks if any of you have been through this before and how you handled it. Is there even a way, an approach of any sort, that could work on my daughters realizing I will not, under any circumstances, get back with their mother? Update. A lot of things have happened. Among those things, my daughters actually stumbled across my post. I had no idea they even browsed Reddit, let alone this place. When I came home one day from work, I found them crying. They pretty much jumped on me, hugged me, wouldn't let me go, and begged me to forgive them. Sadly, they had read one of my replies and found out the dreadful extent of my ex-wife's affair and how much it had devastated me. It took us a while, but we got through it as a family. There was nothing for me to forgive. They're still young, and they love their mother, who took that love and used it to manipulate them. That's on her, not them. There was some much-needed counseling, but after several months, the woman who was helping us heal and move on has said that nothing more needed to be done, and they should only check in with her once in a while, rather than continue their weekly sessions. We're closer than we were before, but their relationship with their mother has suffered for it, which I think is completely understandable, but I still caution them about lingering too much on what she did, since I had gotten over what she did all those years ago. That was something also resolved in counseling, both their own and the shared ones, so it's all behind us now. I had a brief conversation with my ex-wife about it and made it clear that she was to not talk about this getting back together nonsense anymore with our daughters. I can't tell if it really got through to her, but my daughters have not been pestering me about it since then. Or they simply ignore their mother and don't bring it up at home. Either way, so long as my daughters are fine, I could care less what my ex-wife is doing. Since the situation had improved, things had also become much better between my daughters and my girlfriend, so much that they actually started talking with her, rather than just exchanging greetings and goodbyes, even occasionally asking for tips on something, girl stuff of course, and I can't tell you how much it warmed my heart to see that happening for the first time. I'll admit that also helped me push my thoughts in the direction of proposing to my girlfriend, who had been incredibly supportive and understanding through all of this. 2 months ago, Clemence, together with my daughters, surprised me one day and she proposed to me. I have to say that I felt very odd, but also very happy. Not just the proposal, but that my daughters had actually worked with my girlfriend on surprising me that day with dinner and a night out. To put it simply, I was blown away. It was a small and private ceremony with only our closest friends and family attending. Currently, we're also expecting, and my daughters are looking forward to having a baby brother or a sister to spoil. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my pen name with my family? I, 32 female, wrote a book during lockdown that ultimately got published and it's doing okay. Nothing life-changing monetarily. I won't be quitting my day job, but it's something I'm proud of that I never thought I'd accomplish. I published the book under a pen name. My fiance, his mom, and my best friend have all read the book with my permission, but no one else knows it's my work. My family, parents, and older brother know that I published a book, but I have not shared the title or my pen name with them. They've pushed for the information, but I told them I want to keep it a secret in case I want to write more books under that name. I told them I want to be able to write without thinking, what will mom think when she reads this? They never truly accepted this, and it comes up at every family event. Recently, we were together for dinner and the topic came up again. I wasn't in the best mood and we had all had a couple of drinks, and my brother had been acting like a jerk because his wife wasn't there to rein him in. I admitted that the real reason why I wouldn't let them read my book was because when I first tried keeping a diary when I was 6 or 7, My brother, who was 9 or 10, would search my room for my diary, find it, and read it. He would mock me for what I'd written. If his name was mentioned, he would get a black marker and scribble it out. When I went to my parents in tears, they told me it was my fault for writing about him, and he had a right to read it. They did buy me one of those diaries with a lock for Christmas that year, but then he'd just pick the lock, or I'd catch him prying the book open, and he'd never even get reprimanded. I was treated like a nuisance and a tattletale for bringing it to their attention because he was their precious firstborn prince. He would be emboldened and would continue to torment me. I stopped keeping diaries because it wasn't worth giving him ammunition. They blew up when I revealed this and told me I was being a baby and needed to get over it, and it never even was a big deal. I told them that it basically gave me a complex where I'm overly protective of my writing, and I have a hard time sharing it because I feel like I'm going to be mocked and ridiculed for it. They told me I was being so dramatic and that I always do this. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my pen name with them? Not the jerk. And I would go one step further. I wrote about you, bro, and I don't want you scribbling out your name in my book. Karen demands I wash her dog. Yesterday evening, I was leaving the dog park, and since my younger pup was in need of some chewing toys, I decided to come to a local pet store that admits pets. Due to the time, they weren't supposed to have many customers, but I still called in advance to ask if it was okay to bring my 2 dogs with me, and they told me yes. When I came in, there were only like 2 people, no dogs and no employees nearby, so I took my time looking around. Now, the employees have a casual dress code with jeans, an apron, and wear a face mask and a face shield. I was wearing the same minus the apron. Also, to paint the picture, my senior dog is medium-sized and thin, but very protective of me, and my pup is a bit bigger and stronger. I was looking at the treats/chews aisle when a woman about my age approached me and asked about the birds. When she realized I wasn't an employee, she apologized, but I told her I could help her. I am a biologist, and my mother works with birds, so I answered some basic questions about food and housing and showed her a couple of websites on my phone where she could find more info. She thanked me and went on her way. As I was going back to the dog toys, an older woman/Karen carrying a small dog came up to me and started asking to have her dog groomed. I'll try to translate the conversation as best I can since it was not in English. We've got me, we've got Karen, and we've got the supervisor. Karen: Hey, I need to leave my dog to be groomed. How much will it be and when can I pick her up? Me: Sorry ma'am, I don't know. You can ask an employee if you want, but I think they're closed for the day. Karen: You think? Me: Yes, an employee would be able to answer your question. Karen, condescending tone: That's what I'm doing, hun. Now, can you do your job and help a customer? At this point, her dog had started growling at mine. My pup was getting a bit excited and wagging his tail, but my senior dog was staring at it, which usually means he is annoyed and running low on patience. Me: I really don't know. I'm not an employee. Then why were you helping that woman? Me: Because I happen to know a bit about what she was looking for. Oh, and you don't want to help me? At this point, she was raising her voice at me, and her dog was full-on barking. I was struggling to keep my pup still, and my senior dog had started baring his teeth, so I tried walking away, but she kept getting closer. Me: I told you I'm not an employee, so I can't help with what you need. Look, you're upsetting my dogs, so please stay back. Karen: For goodness sake, just take my dog and stop wasting my time. At this point, she shoved her dog towards me. I rose my hands in front of me in reflex, and the little thing bit my finger hard, and I yelped loudly. This caused my senior dog to jump at her and start barking at the dog, making her lose her balance and fall down. Karen screaming: Control those beasts! I'm going to report you! You're doing a poop job! Blah blah blah! Supervisor coming from behind me along with another employee: Hey, what's going on here? Karen: Your employee threw those dogs at me when I tried to ask about grooming. You shouldn't be allowed around pets. Me: I told you to leave us alone. I'm not an employee. Supervisor helping the woman up while the other employee is trying to pick up the tiny dog from Heck. She's right, she doesn't work for us, and the groomer is gone for the day. Unbelievable. I want your supervisor right now. Supervisor: No need. I am the supervisor, and I saw the last part. You were harassing a customer, so please get off the premises. The grooming service is closed for the day. Unbelievable. She snatched her dog from the employee's hands and stormed off, but she kept turning around to scream insults at us. In the end, I was too shaken and decided not to buy anything. The supervisor and the employee still asked to pet my dogs, who had more or less calmed down by then, asked their names and how old they were, and offered each of them a treat for free. They explained that they were fixing an issue on the other side of the store, but came running when they heard the Karen raising her voice. By the time I left and got to my car, the Karen was gone and I could leave in peace. If you're wondering, the pups got extra treats and a lot of pets and kisses. Speaking of dogs, have you ever had a dog? And if so, what kind? Please let us know. Poodles for the win. How my grandpa became the owner of a gas station. My family immigrated to America in the 1880s and settled in Nebraska. We were farmers for the first 80 years or so, but back in the 1960s, my great-grandma decided she was going to sell the entire farm before she passed and simply give her sons 1/3 of the money for inheritance when she passed. She had 3 sons. In 1969, my great-grandma passed, and her 3 sons inherited the money she had earned from selling the farm. My grandpa decided he would basically let that money sit until after he retired from the military. In 1971, he deployed to Vietnam for his second and final deployment. At the end of his deployment, he returned to Nebraska and retired after 22 years of service. Now, he had an old Chevy truck at the time and was in the process of building a concrete business with the money he had gotten from his inheritance. Well, during this time, his truck engine blew up. My grandpa was busy at the time, and he didn't want to fool with the truck because he was busy. So he bought himself the engine he wanted to replace it with, which was an upgrade, and he went down to the only garage in town and asked them if they'd be willing to put the engine in the truck. They agreed on a price and told him to come back in a week or so. A week later, my grandpa comes back and picks up the truck. He admits he felt kind of like a fool for not double-checking the work, but assumed, since this was the son of his friend, that the son would do right by him. This was a small town. Well, my grandpa opens up the concrete business, and he's busy, and it comes time for his first oil change. This is about 4 months after he got the truck back. He's doing the oil change, and he notices that the engine he bought isn't the engine in his truck. It's a smaller engine. This obviously upsets him to high heaven, as my grandma liked to say. So he storms on down to the garage and talks to shop. Earl was the owner. Earl comes out and denies any wrongdoing, says he did as he was told and it shouldn't have taken him 4 months to bring the issue up. My grandpa tells Earl he needs to do what's right. Earl refuses. It's important to note this is a small town. Written contracts and so forth really isn't a thing. Your worth is your word. My grandpa tells Earl he's going to get him for this. Earl laughs and tells him to leave his shop. My grandpa goes down to the county and requests the record for who owns that gas station. Turns out it's an old family friend named Harold. My grandpa stops by Harold's house and starts inquiring about the business deal Harold has with Earl. Harold says, well, Earl rents the gas station/garage from him. My grandpa asks Harold how is everything going, and Harold confides that Earl hasn't paid his rent in 2 months. My grandpa asks, do you have a written lease with Earl? To which Harold goes, no, I sure don't. My grandpa then asks, what if I bought the gas station/garage from you? Harold isn't completely on board with the idea, but my grandpa makes a strong point. Earl isn't paying his rent. Harold doesn't seem like he has much interest in being a landlord anymore, and my grandpa has the cash to buy the place outright. Harold, sensing something is up, asks my grandpa, did Earl do something to you? You seem awfully interested in this garage. Ain't you busy with that concrete business of yours? And my grandpa fills Harold in on the story. My grandpa also mentions that he has a son, my father, who needs something to do, and he'd be happy to buy the whole building from Harold for a fair price, and what happens after that is his business. Also, it's important to note, when Harold decided to rent this business to Earl, in that deal went all the equipment and tools that Harold had acquired over the years, so those belonged to the building. Harold and my grandpa came to a number that they both agreed on. A few days later, my grandpa paid Harold in cash, in full for the business. The paperwork is done, and my grandpa is now the proud owner of a gas station and mechanic shop. Now, my grandpa senses that Earl ain't going to be pleased when my grandpa fires Earl, so for extra good measure, my grandpa calls up the local sheriff, who is a high school friend, and asks the sheriff to come with him to break the news to Earl. So my grandpa and the sheriff go down to Earl's now former business, and they walk in, and before my grandpa can even say hello, Earl says, now I told you, I didn't cheat you. My grandpa smiles and says, "I'm not here about my truck. I'm here to fire you." Earl, with a look of confusion on his face, asks,
"You can't fire me. I own this business."
My grandpa shows him the title and says, "I'm now the owner of this building," to which Earl fires back,
"But I got a deal with Harold."
and the sheriff speaks up. "You do? Do you have a lease?"
"Well, no,"
Earl says, to which the sheriff smiles and says, "In that case, you're going to need to take your stuff and leave." Earl is fuming. He grabs his toolbox and storms out. My grandpa ended up hiring the mechanic that would occasionally work on his truck at his concrete business. He had my aunt and grandma run the gas station full-time, and my dad would work there after school. We owned that garage for 25 years before my grandpa sold it to someone else. Have you ever had a shop try to do you wrong? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
And you wonder why I call corporate.
Am I the jerk for telling my ex-husband my child support obligation is over? I'm 39, female. My ex-husband and I have been divorced for the last 13 years. I gave up custody of my daughter during the divorce and have been sending over child support checks until May of 2020, when my daughter turned 18. My daughter is a quadriplegic and has been since she was 5. Her dad lost his job around 14 years ago, so for the first 2 years after our divorce, the child support me and my then new husband sent over was what helped them survive. My checks have never been late, but I now have 2 kids with my current husband, aged 12 and 8. I've been a stay-at-home mom for the entirety of our marriage, so it's been my husband being kind enough to pay for a kid that's not his. When my daughter turned 18, I talked to her and basically wished her and my ex-husband luck in whatever they chose to do in the future. I get a call from my ex-husband saying that my daughter wanted to start college in fall of 2021. The college they picked was the best in the state for students with disabilities, but that my ex-husband couldn't pay the tuition alone. He said that our daughter couldn't do any of the student jobs available and said if I wanted to do right by my first kid, I should help pay the bill. I was talking to my ex on speakerphone and my current husband interjected and said that was all his money and he has done everything to help me meet my legal obligation, but that's done now. I told my husband that our daughter is now a legal adult and I had covered her expenses when she needed a lot of medical attention at ages 6 and 7. And that we were only a bit older than her when we were already parents. I told him that I had already done right by our child and that college isn't a necessity. I wished them the best of luck in looking into possible other scholarships and grants and said I had 2 other kids that needed me. Am I the jerk for fulfilling all my legal obligations and telling my ex that his 18-year-old is an adult now? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know.
Another story that I just can't wait to see what our audience thinks.
So, you're the manager of my spare time now? I was employed at a small market radio station for many years a while back. I loved the actual work, but the people there were just terrible, particularly the manager in this story. She spent 7 years pretending we were friends, working up from sales to sales manager and eventually station manager. And then one day she decided to make my job a completely miserable experience. Holding station meetings without me, creating recording sessions without putting them on my schedule, ignoring my reports of tech issues so things never got fixed. It was ridiculous how little managing she actually did. Basically, there had been a buildup of her crap leading up to this story, and this was the first real time I put my foot down. Since we were a small staff, and I was the employee with the most years, I had a lot of responsibilities. The easiest way of describing my job was I did everything except sell ads. Every day had the same main responsibilities, but minor changes kept each day different. Punch in at 8 a.m. and co-host the final hour of the morning show. Answer phones and the door all day, record ads and clients, edit shows, do the afternoon broadcast, 1 to 5 p.m., pre-record the evening news block to air after I leave for the day. One day, the morning show host decided we needed to talk about America's Got Talent, but by the time he has this great idea, auditions were already 3 shows in. I had never watched the show before because I absolutely hated reality TV. But I thought, what could it hurt? And I went home that night to watch the week 4 episode. While it was entertaining, it was also an overly padded waste of time. But I did my homework and did the show the next morning and hyped it up like it was the greatest thing ever. Next week, I forgot to watch. I go into work and the morning show host asks what I thought, and I panic for a second before telling him I didn't see it. Since I had about 20 minutes of morning news before I was live, I ran to my office and checked YouTube for a highlight reel. And there it was, an hour-long TV show whittled down to a 15-minute video. Perfect. When it was done, I moved to the broadcast studio and did a great recap of last night's episode. Even the host, who watched the entire show, thought I did a great job keeping up with him. 6th episode came around, and this time I remembered it was on. But since I knew NBC was going to post the highlights for me tomorrow, I opted to spend my free time on something that I actually wanted to do. Next morning, I go straight to the highlight reel and get caught up on every act that was important enough to talk about. Again, the show host thought I did a great job, but my manager didn't think it was good enough. She called me into her office to ask why I was purposely ignoring requests to watch the show. I asked her what difference does it make whether I watch the hour-long broadcast full of commercials and long-winded filler to stretch the runtime versus watching the highlight reel that has every high point and does the same job in 15 minutes. She said it makes a difference and wouldn't elaborate. She was always pulling that "I'm right and I don't have to tell you why" crap. She then pointed out that next week was when judges began cutting acts and there was going to be episodes every Tuesday and Wednesday for the rest of the broadcast, and watching it was mandatory. "How long are these episodes?" I asked her.
They're an hour each.
And that's when I decided to put an end to this BS once and for all. So that's 2 hours of show prep each week? Do I mark that down on my timesheet as overtime? Or am I expected to cut out at 3 p.m. on Fridays so I don't go over my scheduled 40 hours? My manager's eyes bugged out like she never once expected me to demand payment for dictating how I spend my time outside of the office. I just stood there waiting to see if I was going to be making extra money or getting an early start to the weekend. Suddenly, the 15-minute highlight reel during regular paid office hours was good enough. Funny how that works, eh? No overtime and report actual time worked. Regional manager steps on my toes. Many years ago, I was managing a company that was part of a national chain. We served customers all over the world with internet, phone, and we also had a high volume of walk-in customers on site. My regional manager made it clear to me that I was not to authorize any overtime. If a customer walked in or called in a few minutes before closing and would require an employee to work 30 to 60 minutes to service the customer and make a sale, I would allow them to come in late the next day by the 30 or 60 minutes they had worked over the night before. I balanced the time every week with no overtime and reported regular hours on payroll. We were working a bi-monthly pay period. One day when I was off, the regional manager paid a surprise visit to the site I was managing. He had a meeting with all of the employees in my absence and read them the riot act and demanded that all of them must report promptly in the morning at the start of their shift and leave in the same manner at the end of the shift, and they must report actual times on the handwritten time cards to the minute. My team reports this to me the following day and we comply. We rack up a bunch of overtime over the next 2 weeks, with those that got caught up servicing customers at the end of the day after hours. After submitting the timesheets, the regional manager calls me and goes off on me about the overtime. It went like this. Manager: "What the heck is going on over there? I told you no overtime. This is unacceptable. I didn't authorize this." Me: "Did you visit my facility and have a meeting with my staff in my absence and demand that actual times must be reported and they have to be punctual and leave promptly?"
Yes, I did.
Me: "I've been managing this by allowing people to work late and come in late to eliminate overtime and make sales. We close at 5. We expect a sales rep to answer the phone at 4:59, work with the customer and make a sale. If a customer walks in at 4:59, we expect a sales rep to work with the customer and make a sale. This could take 15 minutes to an hour. I appreciate my staff doing this to service the customer, and we are now complying with your new rule to report actual times. You really shook up my staff on your last visit, and I cannot manage this anymore." Manager:
Forget we had this conversation and go back to what you were doing.
"Am I the jerk for not punishing my son for opening limited edition Doctor Who sets? My son, B, 14, is autistic. His special interest is Doctor Who. He's been obsessed with the show since he was about 3. Naturally, his room is Doctor Who themed, and he has several Doctor Who toys. My husband and I, B's stepdad, happily indulge in his interest. B doesn't really understand the whole concept of figurines and plays with them as one would with toys. We make sure to buy him good quality figures that won't cost us a fortune because he'll probably destroy the packaging and lose their props. B's father recently got back into his life and is also a fan of Doctor Who. As such, he was pretty excited to buy him things for Christmas. We explained that he shouldn't buy anything that can't be used as a toy, so no collector's items or anything that would have to stay in packaging. He said he understood. Come Christmas, he bought our son 2 limited edition collector's figure sets, which definitely cost a bit. My husband and I were a little apprehensive, but we didn't say anything. It was explained that they weren't toys and had to stay in their packaging. Our son didn't really pay attention to them, but occasionally I caught him staring and shaking the boxes about. A week ago, he asked me if he could get them out just once, promising he'd put them straight back. I explained that they were expensive and shouldn't really be played with, but they were his, so he can do what he wants with them. He got them out, and true to his word, he kept the packaging nice and puts them back whenever he'd finished playing. Obviously, my ex wound up finding out and blew up at me over it, saying I shouldn't have let him open them because they weren't toys. I explained they were his and he could do what he liked with them. He's insisting I punish our son for not following the rules, saying if he had known B wouldn't have looked after them, then he would have kept them for himself, which is rich considering we told him B would probably take them out of their packaging. My husband thinks we're in the right, but family members think we should do something because our son did get clear instructions not to open the boxes. Am I the jerk? Do you want a job? This happened several years ago while I was shopping where they wear blue shirts and have a nerd platoon. I'm in the computer accessories section looking for a DVD-RW to replace a faulty one and some extra RAM for a kick. I am, however, not dressed in any way like the indentured servant scurrying around the floor. Black leather bomber jacket, black t-shirt, black jeans, black steel-toed boots, and look like I just got off a motorcycle, which I had. In fact, a rather imposing figure if met in a dark alley. I shop here often and know several employees and a few managers. While reading the back of some box, I notice a little old lady, 90-ish years old, and maybe 80 pounds, 35 kilograms soaking wet, glancing behind blank CDs and DVDs. Back and forth through this section, she would pick up a container, carefully look at it, put it back, and grab the next for careful inspection. I didn't really pay much attention until I hear her sigh. Not the typical Karen, get your keister over here and help me, but more the final resignation of utter defeat. Okay, that got my attention. I ask if I can help. She quickly gives me the once-over and paused for a moment. For a second, I thought she was going to call security, then nearly pleaded with me to find what her granddaughter wanted for her birthday. A PC with a DVD-R. I briefly explained that what she's been looking at are blank discs and not PCs. A PC is a full computer. Her blank stare spoke volumes. She told me she had waved down a few blue shirts, but no one responded. I said, that's no problem. What does she want? Let's go see if we can find something for her together. I hold out my arm for her to take, and we round the corner to the laptops and PCs. I get an idea of what her grandkid wants. A laptop is what I gathered, and poke through the models on display. We pick one out, and I pull the little slip she'll need when she goes to the nerd desk to pick it up. I walk her to the counter. She thanks me for being so polite and kind, to which I blame my mother for the upbringing. I go back to shopping for the drive and RAM I need, find them, and head over to check out. I pay and walk to the door. The burly security guy stops me, like everyone else, and looks in my bag and checks my receipt. Just as we're getting done, I get a tap on the shoulder, and it's a store manager I'm familiar with and the little old lady. He recognizes me and asks if little old lady's story is correct. I ask for clarification, not wanting to jump headfirst into a potential shark tank. He relays how I helped her when no one else would. I guiltily nod my head. He tells me this is his mother and the PC is for his daughter. She wanted to surprise both son and granddaughter, so she didn't seek out her son for help, apparently not considering an employee discount either. Well, anyways, he just wanted to thank me for taking the time with his mother. No problem, I said, again blaming my mother for teaching manners. He then asks if I would like a job there. While growing up, we've all hoped some corporate bigwig would single us out and offer us some big shot executive position that doesn't need a lot of input, yet pays a boatload. This was not what he was offering, so I politely declined. Get to help someone spoiling their grandkid? Count me in. I know, not the juicy rant about entitled Karen nor typical tech tale. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Entitled Mom tries to steal my wedding money. We've got me, my fiance, entitled mom, bank employee, and bank manager. Me and my fiance are getting married in December. We both set up a joint savings account, and with a great deal of working our butts off, we were able to save up about $10,000 for the wedding of our dreams and our honeymoon and anything else we'd need down the line. Now, a while back, I agreed to have a cup of coffee with my horrible entitled mom, the one who was a total jerk and walked out on us 11 years ago. The only reason I agreed to meet with her was because I promised my little sister I'd try and be nice and hear her out. Anyway, we spoke. Well, she spoke and I just glared at her and then we left. She then begged me for a lift back to the station and I begrudgingly agreed. I dropped her off and hoped I'd never see her again. Until today. We were sitting at home watching a movie when my phone rings. It's the bank. Bank employee. Hello, this is bank employee calling from Santander. Am I speaking to OP? Me. Yes, hi. Can I help you? Bank employee. I need to discuss account-sensitive information. Can you just confirm some security details for me? I answer his questions and then ask what is going on. Employee. Your fiancé is sitting in our waiting area. She's requesting that we transfer $7,000 from your joint account into an account in a different name. Obviously, this raises some flags, and as per your security settings, any transfer over $1,000 requires joint authorization. We did. Hang on. Sorry, I've just been told she's left the branch, although we still have the card. Me. Let me stop you right there. We're coming in now. Whoever just tried to transfer money from my account wasn't my fiancé, as she's sitting right next to me. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Employee. Okay, we do have to notify our fraud office of this incident. I'll see you soon. Me and fiancé get to the branch and ask to speak with employee and he walks over. Employee. Hello, we just spoke on the phone, didn't we? Me. Yes, hopefully you can tell me how someone got access to our account. Certainly. First things first, if I may see some ID, I can give you your card back. Me. Sure thing. We both hand over our driver's licenses. He looks at them and then hands it back, along with the card. Fiancé. Can you describe the woman who tried to gain access? Me. Actually, you could do one better. I showed my warrant card and badge to bank employee. Me. Police. Would you mind getting your manager? I'd love to have a look at the CCTV from the time of the access. Employee. This is quite irregular, but I'll go get my manager. Ultimately, it's her choice should she show you the footage. Employee picks up a phone off the desk and places a call. A few minutes later, a smartly dressed woman in a burgundy suit walks out. She's holding a laptop. As she walks up, she extends her hand and I shake it. Manager. Officer, if I may just check your ID, I can show you a CCTV still image, but I'm afraid actual video footage would need to be requested via head office. Fiancé. That's all right, isn't it? We just want to know who it is. Me. Yeah, we do. I once again show my ID. The woman opens her laptop and turns the screen around, and there in glorious 1080p is a photo of my mother, leaning against the counter. Fiancé. Wait, isn't that... Me. Yeah, it is. I turn to bank manager and bank employee. Me. Thank you very much. I know who the woman in this picture is. It's my mother. She's unwell. Please proceed with contacting the fraud office, and I'll deal with her. Thank you so much for your time. We leave the branch, and I take my phone out and dial my mom's number. She answers almost immediately. Entitled Mom. Hello, son. What a lovely surprise. Me. Cut the crap. I know you tried to get into my and fiancé's bank account, so before I block your number and see to it that you get arrested for theft and bank fraud, I just wanted to say that I knew you'd never change. You're still the same vile, horrible person you've always been. Entitled Mom. Listen here, you ungrateful man. I deserve that money. It's a son's duty to help their mother out. You owe me. Plus, it's not like you need it. Now, me on the other hand, I happen to need... Click. I end the call and push the block number button. As it turns out, my mom took the card from the glove compartment of my car when I was dropping her off at the station. And yes, don't worry, both me and fiancé will be filing charges against her. Also, another thing that bothered us. What the heck did she need £7,000 for? Karen wants to rename my dog. So this is a bit of an inside joke with my family, with this one. For some context, I have a dog named Anya. Well, one day when I was calling her inside when she was still a young puppy, I said onion by mistake, and she came running. So it's kind of been a running joke in my family that we call her Onion instead of Anya. She responds to both. This happened during Christmas. I was in Petco with my dogs picking out toys for their Christmas and getting some kitty litter. A kid, maybe about 14, came up and he was picking out a toy for his dog. He saw mine and asked if he could pet them. I don't mind and let him pet my dogs. He asks their names and I say, "Oh, the black one is Onion." I just let it slip out of habit. "And the black and white one is Pippin." Kid: "Onion? That's a weird name for a dog." Me: "Did I say Onion? Her name is Anya. When she was a puppy, I called her Onion by mistake. It just became a running joke." Kid: "That's really funny." Then we hear the clearing of a throat and Karen appears. She was nice at first, and she asks about my dogs and we just chat for a minute. And then the kid tells her about how I call Anya Onion. Karen:
Why would you name a dog after a vegetable? That is inappropriate.
Me: "Well, her name is Anya, and I call her Onion as a joke."
And what kind of name is Anya? Wouldn't Princess be better?
Me: "No, Anya is Anya. I have to leave now. Have a good day."
No, you will name your dog Princess. It's a good dog name.
Me: "Well, if you really want to do this, her real name is Anastasia, which means brought back to life. She was found in such a state, you would have thought that she was dead." I thought the name to be more than appropriate. So if you excuse me, I turned back and Karen continued to whine about how Princess was such a good name for my dog and how she deserves her more than I do because I named her a horrible Russian name. I paid for my things and left. Dogs were not harmed in the making of this post. Edit: I just wanted to say I did Anya because I was obsessed with Anya from Buffy. Do you have a dog? And if so, what's their name? Please let us know.
I've got a dog. He's got a huge head and reads to me all day.
Am I the jerk for asking my sister to replace my son's video games she sold? I'm stressed and don't know what to do. I'll keep this as concise as possible, but if more info is needed, I will answer questions in the comments. I'm 44, female, a mom of 4 kids, Joe, who's 16, John, who's 15, Jackie, who's 13, and Janice, who's 11. My husband, Jake, 48, male, and I make a comfortable living. Our kids don't go without, but they are thankful for what they do have. Jake is into console games, which our kids also enjoy. Joe and John have consoles in their room. They each received a PS4 for Christmas, and John was excited to buy some new games with his Christmas money. We do allow them to play games like GTA, but limit their time, and they understand very well that they're just games and not to be emulated. My sister, Tina, who's 40, and her 2 kids, Mike, who's 15, and Molly, who's 14. She's a single mom and isn't home often due to work, so sometimes my niece and nephew took advantage. For example, Mike was grounded over Christmas break for sneaking beer into the house, and Molly is grounded for being caught hooking up with her boyfriend last week. Because of this, my retired mom became their after-school babysitter. This began after Molly was caught last week. Ever since, Tina has gone into overdrive looking for something to blame for their behavior. Here's the situation. John loaned a few of his games to Mike. Tina found them while snooping through her kids' rooms and became furious. She decided to take all of their consoles and games when they were at school and sold everything, including John's games. Mike called me up in a panic 2 days ago and told me what she did. John had texted him about the games the night before, but he didn't know what to tell him because he had already told Tina that they weren't all his games, but she didn't care because they were rubbish. I immediately told Mike that it wasn't his fault and I would take care of this. I called Tina that night when I knew she would be home, and I told her that I knew she sold all of the games in Mike's room and asked her to pay back for the ones that were John's. She told me that children shouldn't be playing such filth and wasn't giving us a cent. I told her that John bought them with his money, and I don't care how she punishes her kids, but she's not punishing mine. She began crying and accused me of calling her a bad mother, yelled at me to go forget myself. Then she handed the phone to our mom, who scolded me and told me my kids shouldn't be playing those games in the first place because my niece and nephew probably picked up their attitudes from those video games. I snapped that my kids respect me and I would never sell their personal property. I wanted the money for my son's games and nothing else. She said,
"Grow up, Gina. You're not a single mom,"
and hung up on me. I told Jake about all this, and he agrees that Tina should have offered to replace the games, but he thinks that I was a jerk for asking when she's a single mom and doesn't make much money. Am I the jerk for expecting her to replace my son's video games? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is Tina? Please let us know.
Tina might want to read a book on parenting or something. Selling all your kids' stuff while they're gone doesn't sound like much of a solution.
The craziest Karen I ever dealt with. This just happened like a couple hours ago, and wow, I need to share this. So I work the night shift at a motel chain that shall remain nameless. Right as I'm clocking in, my coworker starts telling me about some weirdos he dealt with earlier in the day. One of them was a lady he described as unstable, and whom he explicitly did not sell a room to. Now, I have no proof that the lady he dealt with is the same person as the lady I dealt with, but personally, I think it's a pretty safe bet that they are. Anyways, he clocks out. I pull out my laptop, as I usually do to pass the time, and I settle into the shift. Things go pretty smoothly up until about midnight, when I notice a lady approach the front desk out of the corner of my eye. Henceforth, she will be known as Crazy. As I turn to look, Crazy stumbles her way to the front desk, almost as though she was drunk, though I never smelled any alcohol on her. She stands there for a second and then quietly asks,
"Do you have any candy for me?"
Naturally, I was immediately put on edge. Me, no, we don't. Karen stands there for a second and then stumbles away to the magazine rack, at which point she pulled a magazine off the rack, stumbled over to the front door, dropped the magazine on the ground, and then sat down. On the ground, in front of the door. And she just kind of started tapping on the magazines. At this point, I tried calling out to her to get her to move, but it seemed like no matter how loud I called out, she couldn't hear me, just off in her own little world. After a couple seconds, she got up, leaving the magazine on the floor, and then walked past the front desk and out of sight. I checked the security cameras to see where she went, but she wasn't on them. Just as I'm thinking to go look for her, ka-thunk, ka-thunk, I start hearing this weird sound from over by the vending machines. I walked out to investigate, only to see Karen holding on to the front of the ice machine. And I do mean just the front of it, because the front had somehow been derailed from the machine. And I don't know whether she was trying to remove it or put it back, but either way, I start calling out to her again. Once again, Crazy makes no visible reaction to my attempts at communication. Instead, she lets go of the ice machine and walks vaguely in my direction, but not before running face first into the vending machine, twice. Only then did she finally seem to take notice of my existence, turning towards me. Karen.
"Oh, were you talking to me?"
It's worth noting she was literally the only person around. Me. Yes, ma'am. Do you have a room here?
"Yes."
You do? Which room number?
"Yes."
Me. Okay, well, just maybe go back to your room and don't loiter in the lobby. Honestly, at this point, I probably would have been justified in simply kicking her out, but it was late at night and I don't like causing a huge commotion if I can avoid it, so I elected to just escort her to the elevator and hope she'd find her way back to her room. This was a bad call on my part, as it simply resulted in Karen wandering the halls of the top 3 floors and knocking on people's doors. As I started to head out to confront her again, she vanished from the cameras. A second or two later, I hear the phone ring, but before I can pick it up, it stops ringing. Then it rings again. Then it stops. Then again, then it stops. This happened multiple times, and I start wondering what's going on. At which point, I hear a sound from the elevator and check the cameras. Karen is sitting inside the elevator, right in front of the buttons, and is slowly, repeatedly pressing one of the buttons, presumably the emergency phone button, which would explain the calls. At this point, I don't want to go anywhere near Karen, and am strongly debating whether or not I should call in the police, when far and away the wildest event of the night happens. The fire alarm goes off. Emergency doors start slamming shut. People start rushing out of their rooms, and I start running around to see what's going on. And at this point, I spy Karen fiddling around with a fire alarm at the end of the hall. And that was approximately the moment all of my willingness to be a polite customer service representative went straight out the window. I full-on sprinted down the hall, yelling at the lady to ask what the heck she was doing. Her response,
"I thought it was a light switch."
How? How in the sweet heck could anyone mistake a fire alarm for a light switch? I start quickly ushering the lady away from the switch, and as the alarms are still going off, she starts trying to interact with the guests who are leaving their rooms, even reaching up and trying to touch another guest's face. I demanded to know what room she was in, and of course, she couldn't tell me, instead making some vague claim about the whole building being her home. I'm like 200% done with this crap by this point, So you better believe that I had the police on the phone almost immediately, demanding she be removed from the property. When the cops arrive, they started talking with Karen, berating her for not just this incident, but also some other incidents she had caused earlier in the day that they had apparently had to go deal with. She tried pulling out some BS about how she was right in the eyes of God or something. I don't remember. It hardly matters. All that matters is that watching Karen get pulled away by the police was the best part of my night. Am I the jerk for expecting my wife to do our daughter's hair? I, 34, male, have been married to my wife, 32, female, for 8 years, and we have a daughter who's 7. Just want to start off by saying that our marriage is great, except for this one issue. Also, I am a black male and my wife is Indian. This matters. Because of the thing, my wife has lost her job and I'm still working full-time, so I am out of the house on the weekdays from 9 to 6 p.m. My wife has taken over the whole stay-at-mom thing and she's doing a banging job. She will do the house chores and cook. I obviously do help on the weekends, but no doubt that most of the household stuff is taken care of by her. She's extremely attentive to our daughter and is a great mother. I will hang out with my daughter after work to give my wife some time to herself. The issue is that my wife will not do our daughter's hair. Being black, obviously our hair is much more thick and needs more effort than others. My wife has super straight, beautiful hair. Our daughter took after me, and it is very coarse. My wife is mad she can't just put a comb through it and be done. With more coarser hair, there are different products and techniques needed to be done in order for the hair to look good. So my wife absolutely doesn't want to learn. She will just put our daughter's hair in a bun and call it quits. Being honest, her hair looks a mess. She doesn't brush it or anything. Our daughter has recently come to me crying about her friends who have been making fun of her. I confronted my wife about it and she got mad. She told me that it was all my fault that our daughter had this hair, so it was my responsibility to do something about it. I tried telling her that it's her responsibility as a mother to do her own daughter's hair, and she basically lost it on me and told me that I had cursed our daughter with this hair and then told me to leave her alone. I tried sending her links to hair tutorials, but I don't think she cares. I have even suggested for her to take our daughter to the hair salon, and she says she feels uncomfortable about going there and that I should do it. I hardly have time with my daughter, and the only time I really get to hang out with her is on the weekends, and I don't really feel like wasting hours on the weekend babysitting my daughter while she gets her hair done when we can be doing something fun. My wife has literally nothing going on the weekdays, and I don't know why she can't just do it. We got into it again yesterday when my daughter came to me crying again, and my wife told me that if I bring this up again, she will leave. She told me that she should have listened to her parents and not have gotten with me. I'm upset that this is the hill she wants our marriage and family to end on. I talked to my parents and sisters about it, and they basically asked me what the heck did I expect marrying someone like her. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OB the jerk or is his wife? Please let us know.
Oh, my heart goes out to that poor girl.
But I'm the homeowner. This just happened and I'm still a little confused. Bit of background. I, like most people in our neighborhood, have been working from home since lockdown started. We have a townhouse and there's another row of houses behind ours. I wear blue t-shirts because I like blue and I'm on the spectrum and mostly because I like blue. Anyway, I've had a bit of a work lull and have been stepping up my cleaning routine. I spent a solid hour on my knees today scrubbing the kitchen grout that turned out to be light beige, not dark brown. Who knew? About an hour ago, our doorbell rang. I answered and found a random Karen on my front steps. Without any introduction, she started right in. Cast. We've got me. We've got Karen. We've got my husband. And we've got Karen's poor husband. Karen.
How much do you charge?
Me. Pardon me?
How much do you charge?
Charge for what? Karen, dramatic eye roll. Equally dramatic sigh, under her breath.
They let just about anyone in here. Unbelievable.
In an overly loud tone and extra slowly.
How much do you charge for your cleaning service?
At this point, it dawned on me that she thought I was here cleaning. This is a bit odd. Our front drapes were closed all day, so the only way she would have seen me cleaning is if she was looking in our back second floor windows. So yeah, creepy. I'm not a fan of people who are rude. Doesn't matter if they think you are beneath them. There's no reason to be a jerk. Me. Oh, I see. I don't charge to clean my house. Do you think I should send my husband an invoice?
Give me your husband's phone number. Clearly, I'll need to negotiate with him.
Me. Oh, no need. He should be taking his lunch break soon. Let me go get him for you. At this point, I shut the door in her face. The high today was 28 and windy, so I can't imagine that she was comfortable standing out there. But at least she has some time to cool off. My husband was coming upstairs at this point and opened the door. Karen.
Do you speak English?
Husband. Yes, do you not?
This is America. We all speak English here. Your employee was very rude to me. I want to hire your cleaning services, but she would not be welcome in my home. Bring someone else. I'll need a full house clean tomorrow morning, and I will pay you $80 if your staffer does a good job.
At this point, Karen stomped off, clearly convinced she was getting her house cleaned. I guess she told her husband, because he came by about 20 minutes later and profusely apologized. Apparently, this had been discussed already, and she absolutely refused to believe that we lived there. Have for more than 6 months now. He had told her to leave us alone, but she was evidently determined. Karen's husband. I told her you guys were the new neighbors. She just refused to believe me. She said you always wear blue uniform shirts and just couldn't be persuaded. I'm so sorry for the interruption. Edit. Her husband just came back over with a gift card. Wanted to give us dinner on him for putting up with his wife. Think we'll ask him to join us. Yes, I am working. Same thing you should be doing. So, the general situation. I'm female, pale skin, blonde hair. I work for a family business, construction/contractor work for private residents. I'm the only female on the job. Boss is my dad, and no, I do not get coddled. At the time of this event, I was 19 and working to pay for college. We were working on a deck job in state that is hot, humid, and was summer at the time. Think you look like you went swimming after a couple hours just standing outside. My boss left to run errands, but left me to move lumber from the driveway to the back of the house, mostly treated 2-inch by 12-inch by 16 feet stringers and 5/4 decking. Now, this deck was also getting a double-level fireplace, basically one fireplace on the deck and another below it all connected. No idea how it works, but one of the few jobs we don't do is masonry. So the mason, we will call him Joel, comes by with his crew of 4 men. 3 of them I recognize, if not know by name. Joel says hi and asks where my dad is. Me, currently holding a 2x12x16 stringer, he's running errands, but he said you guys could do what you need. Let me know if the lumber is in your way. No worries. Then I assume he directs the other guys on what the job is. Now, all the guys I know aren't bothering to look at me other than the initial hello and are getting around to work. The 4th guy has been staring at me the whole time with a look on his face, the kind of look that says, I have something I want to ask. Oh boy, I know that look, but usually I get it from guys in 50s and up. It was weird from a guy probably only a few years older than me. Now, I take my lumber and stack it in the pile I had been building up before heading back for more of my arm workout. Then the guy I don't know steps in front of me. How old are you? Me. 19. Trying to move around him. I'm paid hourly. What are you doing? At this point, I think he's a little dense, because it should be obvious what I'm doing. Moving lumber closer to the deck and saw. Why? For the deck? He looks like he's building up to something, but I'm getting a little impatient because it's hot. I feel gross, and I don't particularly want to be answering personal questions to a guy I just met. I suck at lying. Why? So I can pay for school. Once again, I try to get around, and again he blocks me. Suddenly, surprised Pikachu face. You work here? Yes, same thing you should be doing. This time he is too stunned to stop me, and I walk around him. Then I hear the other guys laughing, I assume at him. Side note, yes, years later I realized the slight possibility he was going to ask me out. Doubt it. However, no way in heck is trying to corner a girl like that a good way/polite/appropriate way to ask someone out. Even if I hadn't been dating someone at the time, doesn't really matter as far as I see it. But we're friends with the owners, the stars of this show. We've got me, very tired college student at the time. We've got Anne, the most senior floor staff, fake name, and we've got the entitled couple. I used to be a waitress in a small Chinese and Thai restaurant, family owned, head chef being the owner and the manager was the wife and is also the owner. Manager was the more social between the two and they had a small group. Entitled couple were regulars in the restaurant. They used to come every week. This gave them a distorted entitlement. Specific tables, free drinks, extra sides, etc. You know the sorts. We had a very great deal for early bird, 3-course dinner with after-dinner drink for 18 euros at the time. The early bird would finish at 7:30 p.m. on the dot. 5 minutes late for your reservation? Sorry, no can do. The system won't let you. Anne always served entitled couple whenever they came in. I was working in the restaurant for 4 months at that point and never had the wonderful opportunity to serve them until one faithful night. About 7:30 p.m., we were always very quiet. Anne decided to polish the cutlery. Entitled couple waltz in, and I had to serve them as Anne was in the kitchen. I brought entitled couple to the corner of the restaurant where there was a lovely view of the waterfront. Apparently, that was the wrong thing to do. It wasn't their table. The table in question was specifically booked by a couple and were in the middle of eating their main course. I apologized and asked if they booked the table specifically, fearing that we may have overbooked it or we gave their reservation to someone else. Entitled couple did not book it, but we should have kept it open just in case they came in that night. I apologized again, but I couldn't switch their table. I gave them the normal menu as it was 8 p.m. and early bird was no longer available. Cue the shouting. How dare I offer them the normal menu? Don't I know who they were? Very important people as they have forgotten their own names. Anne and the manager rush over as they were causing a scene. I explained the situation and the manager explained the system of early bird. Entitled couple argued that they have always got the early bird when Anne serves them and that I should be fired for such poor service. Anne explained that they usually arrive before 7:30 p.m. and it wasn't because they were regulars. The manager, who didn't want to cause a bigger scene, offered them 10% off the normal menu. That wasn't enough. Cue the quote, "But we're friends with the owner." Me and Anne look at the manager, who is looking back at us. The manager tells them that she doesn't know who they were. Entitled couple said that obviously she didn't, as it was the owner who knows them. The manager looks at them directly and said, "I am the owner." Entitled couple both went bright red and said that the normal menu was fine. All the other tables started to chuckle. Me and Anne had to go leave to the front to have a really good laugh. No tips, of course. Entitled couple came back the next week at 7:29 p.m. I make all the decisions. Keep me informed of everything. Okay, you asked for it. So I work for a large professional services firm. I have a couple of partners above me, and the general practice is that they let me get on with the project management and I give them a heads up on what they need to know and do when necessary. One of our partners recently came back from working overseas for a few years and has no clients or work of his own. So me, being the nice guy that I am, I bring him along to a few of my client meetings and introduce him as the partner on a number of big jobs I've sold. To be clear, he did nothing to develop the work or sell it, but we need to have a partner to front up any job. So instead of going with the flow, this guy decides he wants full briefing notes from me before every meeting. He wants me to write down scripts for him with what he should say so it looks like he knows what he's talking about and isn't just a waste of space. I'm working 80 hours a week on the jobs I've introduced him into and tell him that I don't have time to write out everything for him, but will brief him on what he needs to know before every important call and tell him what he needs to say. Not only doesn't he thank me for helping him out, but he calls me and starts screaming down the phone to me that I don't communicate enough with him and that he wants full briefing notes before every meeting and copied into every meeting, etc. Also puts me in my place that he's the partner and that he's the one that will make all the client decisions. He also has me in tears on the phone and proceeds to keep telling me what I need to do for him. Fine. Here comes the malicious compliance. Each job probably generates about 40 or 50 emails a day between me, my team, and the client. Lots of info being exchanged and the client asking for decisions to be made and calls to be scheduled. I tell my 3 team to copy him into every email. Every question asked by the client is directed to him to answer in every email. Every little catch-up meeting he is invited to, no matter how trivial or important. Fast forward a week or so. He's got about 500 emails he's not read. His diary is booked out with dozens of meetings. He's got dozens of requests for decisions that have slipped through his fingertips. Every meeting with the client that he dials into, he looks visibly more stressed as he is overwhelmed and can't keep up. He's continually dropping the ball in front of clients and other partners. Other partners are approaching me and asking what the heck is he doing? And he can't say a word to me because everything he needs and every request that was made of him was in one of those 400 emails a week that he is now copied into. Lady thinks I paint ceramics for customers. I like painting ceramics. It's a stress reliever for me, and I went often before lockdown. This particular story took place a couple years back. I was painting at my local paint-your-own-ceramics store one day to get away from my parents for a few hours and calm down. The owner trusted me enough to leave me alone in the store and stepped out for a bit. I zoned out and just focused on my work when I hear the Karen. Karen.
You. I tried calling for 30 minutes. Why didn't you answer me?
Me. Sorry, miss.
I wanted to know the prices of your ceramics, and I wanted to book a party for Friday.
Me. Ma'am, I don't...
Now tell me the prices.
I get up and walk over to the shelf and started to explain the same statement I have heard over and over again. Can you tell I come here often? While I was doing this, the owner came back in. Owner. OP, what are you doing? Me. This lovely lady wanted to know prices, so I was telling her how pricing worked. Owner to Karen. Miss, she's a customer. Karen.
That's BS. I saw her painting.
Owner. Ma'am, this is a paint-your-own-ceramic shop. She's painting something for herself.
Then how does she know about the pricing system here?
She's a regular here. She's heard both my daughter and I talk pricing over and over again, so of course she would know.
Then who do I talk to?
Owner. I'm able to assist you. OP, you can go sit down. I got this. I got a free mocha from her daughter's coffee shop for not losing my cool on that Karen. Entitled Dad sells my $1,500 PC and charges me the extra money for a TV. Okay, so this happened a few months ago. Background. I've been saving up for years to get a PC that I really wanted for $2,000. However, I found one with all the specs that I wanted for $1,500 once I had earned the money. That also allowed me to get a nice monitor, keyboard, and mouse. I also got a new desk because my old one was falling apart. I'm 17 years old, by the way. Anyway, in the end, I had about $300 or $400 left in my bank account. However, my entitled parents, who created my bank account, also have the info to get into it. Anyways, I had all of the things for my PC sitting in the corner of my room while I waited for the desk to arrive. This is when Entitled Dad strikes. Entitled Dad.
Hey, OP.
Me. Yeah? What is it? Entitled Dad.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but what grades do you have right now? I think they look terrible.
Me. I have almost all A's and one B. Why?
I didn't raise you for a B. Look, it's almost a C already.
It wasn't. Me. I've always had trouble in history. I don't see what the whole big deal you're making is. This was the wrong thing to say.
How dare you? I raised you and you treat me like this?
He then proceeded to kick me out of the house and say,
Get out of here until you've learned your lesson.
I just did what I normally would do whenever he gets moody. Take a walk to Starbucks and play games on my phone for a few hours. When I returned home, it was about 7 p.m. I went into my room to lay down when I noticed something wrong. My unopened boxes of things for my PC were all ruined. I thought he had destroyed it, but they were empty. He wasn't home either. I start to panic when I got a call from him. This is how the conversation went. Entitled Dad.
I hope you're really happy with yourself.
Me. What the heck did you do with my stuff?
Oh, what do you mean? I'm just helping you to improve your grades.
Me. No, you're not. You're just stealing my stuff.
How dare you accuse your loving father of doing something like that? I would never steal from you. I just remove your privileges when you're bad.
Me, now getting angry. What did you do with my computer? Entitled Dad.
Oh, you won't be needing that old thing anymore. I sold it.
He then hung up, and I can just imagine his smug face. Later on, when I managed to pull myself back together, my dad ends up pulling into the driveway. He's pulling a big box after himself. Entitled Dad.
Help me out with this.
Me. No, why should I do that? What you should do is give me the money you got for the computer. Entitled Dad.
It wouldn't be a punishment if I just gave it back to you. In fact, you're not getting any back at all. I just spent it all buying this new TV for myself. By the way, you're grounded now, and I'm taking away your phone, and you can't watch TV for at least 2 months.
This was just outrageous. He not only sold my computer, but he's using the money for his own self-benefit. He even sold the keyboard and mouse and would have gotten even more money for them if he hadn't taken them out of the box. After a few days, with me going to school and not coming back until late at night, ignoring my dad's yelling at me every night, I decided to just check in and see how my monthly interest was going in my bank account. To my horror, when I opened it up, There was only $15 left in it. I was sure I had at least $350, meaning entitled dad had done something. I confronted him about it, and he just said,
TVs cost more than you think.
he bought an $1,800 TV and charged me what he couldn't make for my PC. The moment I get enough money, I'm out of here, and I bet he's gonna be shocked when not just my sister, but I won't be showing up to his family gathering as well.
Karen's stepdaughter demands I pay for her wedding that I'm not even invited to.
I've been in my stepdaughter's life since she was 11. She was dealing with so much and was understandably mad at everyone, including me. She was dealing with a chronic condition, her parents' separation, and leaving her family and friends after her mom moved to my hometown. My stepdaughter ended up with last-stage kidney failure. She was on dialysis for over 9 months. I stayed home with her, and I spent a lot of time with her doctors trying to learn about different machines. She had many blood transfusions and was admitted to the hospital several times. Her mom wasn't there much because she had to work, so I was the one who stayed home and took care of her. It became too much for us, so we decided that I'd be getting tests done to see if I could be a potential donor. And I was a match. I donated one of my kidneys in 2017, and thankfully there were no problems after the surgery. Her recovery was complete a few months after because she had other issues. Her now fiancé proposed to her after she was discharged from the hospital, and they're getting married in February. She's 23 now, studies in an online college, and is doing okay. Her mom and I don't share finances. My work nature is different. I don't get paid on a monthly salary. I own a truck that I use to make a living, but I'm capable of providing for the family. My stepdaughter stopped visiting. She used to call a lot. She called and checked on me a lot, but I heard that she's spending time with her biological dad and visiting him and his new wife, which is not a bad thing. But one time when she visited, she and her mom asked if I could help pay for her wedding, and I agreed. My stepdaughter seemed distanced and no longer had heart-to-heart conversations with me. She had talked to her mom, and her mom would talk to me. Turned out, she accepted her biological dad back into her life and said that no matter what happened, he's her dad. I respected her decision. But last night, I argued with my wife after my stepdaughter told her to ask me to not come to her wedding because her biological dad will be there. I was confused. I asked why, and she said that her biological dad didn't want me there, and she wanted him there. I felt awful. My wife told me to be more understanding, but I told her that I won't be paying if I'm not allowed to come, and she should ask her real dad to pay. My wife acted shocked and said that this might ruin my relationship with her daughter, but her biological dad's opinion is more important, clearly. I refused to pay and told her I won't discuss it. My wife said my stepdaughter will be disappointed and I shouldn't punish her because of her biological dad, but I'm not. I couldn't take this treatment and being put last. From what I understand, her biological dad is actually contributing money to her wedding. My wife says that no matter what decision my stepdaughter makes, I needed to respect it, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not saying her biological dad shouldn't be there, but they need to understand that I won't be paying towards the wedding if I'm not welcome there. Her biological dad clearly doesn't want me there, and my stepdaughter is listening to him for reasons. He and I have never been on good terms. He's always been neglectful, especially during his daughter's illness, but he claimed that I'm the neglectful one, and my stepdaughter shouldn't be living with me. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you still pay for her wedding or not? Please let us know.
Heck no, I wouldn't. You gotta be kidding me.
I don't work here, lady, but will you marry me? I will keep this short and simple. This was 3 years ago, and it was December. I remember because it was the day before my birthday. I was in a big box store, one that combines a grocery store with clothing and electronics. You get the picture. I saw a cashier I knew standing at the end of her register on her cell phone. How she was getting away with it, I don't know. When I saw a woman who was clearly vision impaired tried asking the cashier for help, but she kept blowing her off. I heard her say, "Go ask someone else." Now, I'm a Boy Scout at heart. Mom and Dad raised me to help others in need if I see that they need help. I walked up to the lady and asked if there was any way I could help. She said yes. She wasn't used to the new layout since they remodeled. From experience in high school, a girl I had a huge crush on was visually impaired, and she would hold my arm and elbow so I could guide her. She carried the handbasket and would tell me what she needed. We walked, and she told me how in school she had a nice friend who did the same for her. I said he seemed like a decent guy. She told me he was kind of short and had a squeaky voice, but seemed shy. I helped her with her shopping, And when we were done, we went to the register and the cashier who had blown her off said, "Hi Ricardo, how are you today?" "Don't hi Ricardo me. This young lady tried asking you for help and you blew her off. Just stood there yakking on your phone. Just ring us up." The young lady said, "Wait, Ricardo, did you go to GW High?" I said, "Yes, I did." "Ricardo, you don't recognize me?" Then it hit me. "Sandy, is that you?" Sandy said yes. She didn't recognize me or my voice. I had gotten taller. "And you told me your name is Rick." "Yes, my name is Rick, short for Ricardo. Puberty hit me like a tsunami after high school. I was a real late bloomer." We talked for a while because I didn't recognize her at first. She had, how should I say this, blossomed into a beautiful woman. I confessed I had a crush on her in high school and was crushed when I heard a guy was taking her to the prom. I was trying to work up the courage to ask, "Ricky, that guy who took me to prom? That was my brother. He didn't want me to miss out on it." I laughed and said, "Oh, wow. If I wasn't a chicken, I'd have asked you sooner. You could have told me no sooner." She laughed and said, "Actually, I was hoping you would have asked. I didn't know you worked here." Yes, here comes the infamous words from my mouth. "I don't work here." Sandy said, "You don't work here and you helped me? You always were a sucker for a damsel in distress." We exchanged phone numbers and dated. And 1 year to the day in December, I asked Sandy to marry me. She said yes, and we are now married and very happy. I may not have taken Sandy to the prom, but I went better. I took her as my bride. Thanks for reading. Enjoy your life. When things seem bad, who knows? Your I don't work here lady may be the one you love. Edit. I know it may be confusing due to my lack of being able to put thoughts to paper or in a Reddit, but I did not marry the cashier. Some clarifications. Why we didn't make the connection until we were at the register. Through the school years, I knew her as Sandy, not Cassandra. Sandy told me her name was Cassandra, her full name she used at work. I introduced myself as Rick because I hated hearing Ricky Ricardo jokes and just used Ricardo for work. I didn't recognize Sandy because, as I said, she had blossomed, meaning her figure was fuller and more womanly. I remembered her having a more girlish figure and long auburn hair, which is short and strawberry blonde. She did not recognize me because, like I said, puberty hit me later than most and I was taller. My voice is deeper. Sandy did not say the name of the boy who helped was Ricardo. The reason why the cashier knew me by Ricardo is because I worked across the street and the bus stop was right in front of it. Employees would come in to buy something to munch on or drink or ask for change. When the cashier called me Ricardo, not Rick or Ricky, that's when the penny dropped for the two of us and we finally made the connection. I'm just being nice to a Karen and she demands to see my manager. This happened a few weeks ago just after Xmas. I was at the grocery store picking up a few supplies my wife had forgotten to get when we did groceries. This grocery store also carries clothes, books, and toys. My aunt works at this store, and since it's the closest to my house, I'm there every week. So I know a few employees that I see regularly, and when I pass them, I say hello to them, ask how their day's going, etc. The uniform there is a black t-shirt or sweater embossed with the store's name written in yellow and a picture of the mascot with a bright yellow name tag. They even wear black masks with the store name printed on them as well. I was wearing a black sweater that day, but it said "Smile More" on it written in white with no name tag and a black Harry Potter mask. I had stopped at the toy section to look for something for my daughter when I heard it. "Excuse me?" I turned and saw her. Karen was standing there with her arms on her hips staring at me. She had a blue mask on, with her nose out, of course. I thought she wanted something from where I was standing and didn't want to get too close, so I said, "Oh, sorry," and took a few steps back. She gave me a weird look and said, "There was a basket of books here last week. Do you know where they were moved to?" As luck would have it, I did remember seeing some books there and had actually bought one for my daughter for Xmas. I saw a few of them on the shelf near where I was standing now. I pointed to them and said, "Here you go. I guess they moved them on the shelf." She looked where I was pointing and said, "No, these aren't them. I'm looking for some smaller books." I said, Sorry, not sure where they went. The book section is on the other side of the store. I'd try there." She looked at me and said, "Aren't you going to check for me?" I was a bit tired from working all day, so it didn't click in my head yet. I have to pick up a few things from over here first, but I guess I can have a peek on my way to the registers and let you know if I see anything. She let out a huff and said,
Doesn't anyone want to work around here nowadays? You all are so lazy.
That's when I realized what was going on, so I told her, "Oh, sorry, I don't actually work here." She looked at me and said,
Yes, you do. I saw you saying hello and laughing with all those other employees.
I laughed a little. "Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a regular, and I say hello to a few people I know. But no, I don't work here. I don't even have a uniform on." She looked at my sweater.
I don't care if you're off duty. You still represent the store and have to treat customers with respect. I want to speak to your manager.
I smiled a little under my mask. "Ma'am, I'm my manager at the auto parts store that I work for. If you're looking for a part for your car, I can definitely help you out. But unfortunately, that's all I can do." She seemed to be putting two and two together when an actual employee walked up. "Is everything okay here?" Karen turned to her, paused for a second, and in a super polite voice said,
Hi, yes, I was looking for the book section.
The employee said, "Sure, I'll show you," and they walked away without another word. I think she was more embarrassed than anything. I got my stuff and checked out. Never saw if she actually got her books or not. If you were at a store that you didn't work at and someone who looks like a Karen asked you to help them, would you or not? Please let us know.
I'd get out my phone and start recording them. You can never be too safe with these things.
Am I the jerk for telling my sister she was dating my biological father?
Oh, this is gonna be good.
So, my life's turned into a soap opera recently, and I could use some outside opinions here. I, 24, female, am the product of my mom having an affair. Fortunately, my dad decided to forgive my mom and keep me, and I had a pretty good upbringing. But I don't really look a lot like the rest of my family. I'm the only redhead, among other things. And I did ask questions of a why am I the only one with insert trait here nature growing up. When I was 17, my mom took me out for ice cream and introduced me to my biological father. She said that she felt I was old enough to know the truth and explained about her affair, while also A, making me promise I wouldn't tell my older sister, 27, female in the present, and B, hammering home along with my biological father that he'd never be part of my life and didn't want me. It was a lot, I won't lie, but I learned to suck it up and move on with my life. Fast forward to the present. My big sister has always gravitated towards older men. We like to joke that it's the result of too many George Clooney movies growing up, and 2 months ago shared a picture of herself and her new boyfriend, who, to my shock, turned out to be my biological father. I debated what to do for a couple of days, then ultimately decided she needed the truth and told her. My sister did not take it well and dumped him, but she wasn't angry with me. Honestly, by now, she's kind of amused. Says that since she got with my dad, she's my mom and has extra power to boss me around now. My mom, on the other hand, is furious. She says I divulged something that wasn't my secret to share and that I had no business telling anyone. That since biological father isn't related to my sister, it didn't matter if he dated my sister, and it wasn't like they were talking marriage anyway. It's been 2 months and she's still angry, still snide, calls me a traitor, and finds excuses to make loud comments about how I can't be trusted with anything private or important, so beware. At the time, I thought I was doing the right thing, but I've never seen my mom this angry before, and she sustained that anger for 2 solid months, so I'm starting to worry. Did I actually do something really bad? Am I the jerk? Edit. Wow, this got a lot more comments than I expected. I can't answer everyone, but I do appreciate every comment and the support that I'm getting. 2 months of having your mom furious with you takes quite a toll, so it's been really relieving seeing so many not the jerks in the comments. Thank you all. I'm trying to read everyone even if I don't reply. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for what she did or not? Please let us know.
Definitely not. Now her mom, on the other hand.
How I got our translator fired. I was working at a job that had me operating in one of our offices overseas. We would have business expenses, and those receipts would be in the language of the country we were in, obviously. Those expenses were for things like printer ink, office equipment, cleaning services, marketing costs, all pretty standard stuff. Well, around this time we got a new VP over our region who worked out of head office in LA. This VP came up with this brilliant idea to hire a translator to translate all of our receipts to make sure we weren't sneaking in BS. Fair enough. However, the issue that arose was that we had to send our expenses to the translator who would translate the receipt, then submit for reimbursement. The problem was, this translator was a real Karen type.
She would demand better scans of the receipts, oftentimes after we had already thrown it away. She would argue if we really got the best deal on whatever we bought. I remember in one transaction on about $200 of ink cartridges, she asked me why I didn't order online from this common website, to which I said they were out of stock at the time and we needed the ink, so we bought from a local store. To which she said I was spending too much money, to which I said it's none of your concern. Your job is to translate the receipt. To which she said if I want her to submit my expenses, I need to be nice to her. To which I said she needs to learn her place. She's a translator, not a VP that gets to instruct me on what to do. After this encounter, she started being extra picky with my expenses. So one day, I came into the office early to call her and try to work things out. She basically told me that I messed up by upsetting her, and she expected my expenses report to be perfect or she wouldn't submit them unless they were. I told her if she keeps this up, she won't have a job much longer. She laughed and wished me well and hung up. A few months later, we had our annual meeting in LA, and after the meeting, we were at a bar and I walked up to our VP and started up a conversation. I steered the conversation to expenses and I asked him how much in monthly expenses did he typically reimburse us for the country we worked out of. He said about $3,000 to $4,000. I acted surprised and asked, "Is that all?" He goes, "Yeah." To clarify, that $3,000 to $4,000 is the typical spend, and he says, "Yeah, it rarely gets above $4,000. So I ask him about how Karen, our translator, is doing. He says she's doing a good job, and I nod my head and I go, "How much fraudulent expenses has she caught?" It's important to note, every employee that was submitting expenses was well paid. They'd be awfully stupid trying to skim some extra dollars via fraudulent expense reports. He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you hired her to ensure all the expenses you're reimbursing us for are legitimate, right? Her job is to translate them for you, correct?" He says it is, and I ask, "So, is it safe to presume you've done that to ensure people aren't submitting BS expenses?" He says, "You could say that." I smile and ask, "So, how much in fraudulent expenses has she caught?" He thinks for a moment and goes, "I don't think she's caught any." So I ask, "And how much do we pay her?" He says it depends on her workload, but between $2,500 to $3,000 a month. I smile and ask, "Does it make sense to pay someone $3,000 a month to translate $3,000 in receipts?" "Well, she ensures we aren't getting fraudulent expenses." And I counter, "Well, you said she hasn't counted any in the last 9 months, and the expenses are always between $3,000 and $4,000. So as long as the expenses stay in that range, wouldn't it be safe to assume that the expenses are legitimate? And couldn't you bring on a translator on a contract basis if they get out of hand?" He sees my point. And imagine the cost savings. We would probably save over $40,000 a year. That's a good chunk of change, isn't it? The VP tries to defend his position. "But she does a good job." And I counter, "But you could frame this as you've saved us $40,000 a year and created a baseline to judge expenses by. Cutting costs is always good for the bottom line and the end of the year bonuses, isn't it?" FYI, I knew that a major percentage of a VP comp package with the company had to do with the company's margin at the end of the year. The bigger the margin, the bigger the bonus. You can see the twinkle in his eye. We carry on the rest of the night. A few weeks later, we get an email from the VP saying that we will submit all of our expenses directly to the admin for reimbursement and that we have let go of Karen. FYI, Karen wasn't her real name, obviously. Am I the jerk for telling neighbor's wife why I stopped hanging around their kids? I, 27, male, just moved into my new house a couple months ago in a nice neighborhood. It was a house my late uncle was renting out and left it to me. The neighbors next door have 2 kids, ages 8 and 11. When I first moved in, I started taking up painting outside. Not a professional, but I used to love it in high school, so I decided to try it again since I'm not really busy with work and have the free time. The boys would notice me outside in the afternoons, and the eldest asked me once if they could borrow my paint so they can make something too. And that's where it started. I'm a kids guy and hope to have my own one day, so I let them start coming over to paint after they were done with school. We got along great, and they enjoyed learning how to paint. Their mom hangs around when I'm outside with them to look at their work, and I chat with her. This has been an everyday thing for the last couple of months. Well, until a few weeks ago when the dad approached me. This is the second time I've seen him since I moved. He never leaves the house, even when they do. He was really mad because he didn't appreciate me flirting with his wife in front of his own house, and also doesn't like that I'm using his kids just to talk to her. This caught me by surprise.
I've never behaved in any way that would be inappropriate around her. Most of our talks are about her kids or everyday stuff. I did try to explain and apologize if I crossed any lines, but he just said to keep my distance from his family. So that's what I ended up doing. When the kids would come over, I'd tell them that I'm stuck with work stuff. It makes me sad to bum them out, but I didn't want to overstep with their dad. Then on Friday, neighbor's wife came out while I was watering my lawn. She said she hopes they didn't bother me too much and was sorry if they took up so much of my time. It's because she thought I stopped having their kids over because I was tired of them or something. I didn't want her feeling bad since it probably seemed that way with how I abruptly ended the painting sessions, so I told her that her husband didn't seem happy about it and he asked me to keep my distance. Didn't go into details, I only said I didn't want to upset him. It was obvious she didn't know from her reaction, but she thanked me for telling her. But that just seemed to make things worse, because he came at me this morning even worse than before. He was beyond angry that I told her anything, and now it's my fault they had a fight. Now I feel awful. I really hate conflicts, and the last thing I wanted was to make my new neighbors hate me for causing them issues. Thinking back now, should I have told her anything? I really didn't want any issues, but ended up doing that anyways. Was I the jerk for the way I handled things here and causing them problems? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is the husband? Please let us know. That hubby sounds kind of insecure, to be honest. My manager thought hiding my quota would make me work more. I started working at a chain supermarket in November of 2019. I worked as a Cap 2 associate, stocking shelves, unloading trucks, stuff like that. My supervisor when I started was amazing. She had some higher expectations than possible for me only working there for a month, but generally I would get a quota, say 8 hours, and would have to get that section done in that time frame. Any time exceeding the 8-hour workday I had would warrant someone getting sent over from a smaller section of our department to help me wrap it up. Skip ahead another month, and she has to go on leave for about a month. My average quota gets upped to about 14 to 16 hours a day, and our manager gets moved to the night shift. In comes a new manager. This guy was a nightmare. I stopped getting help in the juice and water sections that I worked and ended up with a few large pallets left at night for the overnight crews because, like I said, I was getting 14 to 16-hour quotas to fulfill in my 8-hour shift. Once the DM stopped helping him make the sheets and gave him full control, he started pulling me to the side and constantly told me to work faster, to which I would reply, "I'm working as fast as I can. I'm getting double the amount of work to do in the same amount of time." He doesn't listen. Then comes the first week of February. I check my department, still working in juice and water. Great, my specialty. I look over at the quota. It's blank. I think nothing of it, get my usual amounts of pallets, and don't finish them all. This goes on for about a week before he comes up to me again. "OP, you aren't getting your quota done on time." I can't get it done on time if I can't see the amount of time it's supposed to take. Plus, it hasn't changed in quantity since January. I'm still getting a bunch of freight to move on the floor. "You really need to start finishing your quota either way. Overnights are complaining." Can you at least send someone over from paper and chem? The fastest aisles, usually done in 4 hours. "No, you have to do what you can do." Here comes the malicious compliance. I still wasn't getting my quotas printed, but everyone else was. I timed how long it took me to unload and stock a pallet and an L cart, which they use to haul TVs to your vehicle and such. My average time was 1 hour and 30 minutes for each pallet, which I had to move 2,500 pounds of liquids by myself onto the floor using a normal jack. Carts took me about 30 minutes. My average night had 2 carts and 7 to 8 pallets from the GM truck and the product that gets pulled in the morning. Every day we had to unload trucks for a different department that worked at the same time as us and take an hour lunch. That takes up about 1 hour and 20 minutes out of my 8-hour workday. We also had to pull everything unloaded from a GM truck to the floor for overnights an hour before closing. From then on, I started checking out the pallets and carts, then wrote in the time that it would take me on the quota sheet. Still around 13 hours of labor on a light night, including unloading the other truck for the other department. I stop unloading the trucks that come in and taking half lunches and no breaks. They required 15-minute breaks 2 hours before and after lunch. I ask my friend in the aisle next to me if they can grab the coffee, tea, syrups, anything else that was technically theirs that I still had to stock for them. They had no problem with it, and it took about a full pallet and a cart away from my time. I started staying late and stopped pulling GM freight for the overnight crew. After a large check full of overtime and scolding from higher-ups on skipping my breaks, my manager finally says something. "Why aren't you helping out with the trucks? You told me to just worry about my quota." You need to start helping out your coworkers, and you can't skip breaks and lunches and work late. That gets me in trouble and you. Well, I need to get the quota done. You told me that's what I had to do no matter what. You need to get it done and then still help. I can't do that in the time I'm given. I can see I'm getting nowhere. Just go. Every day after that, I started getting not only quotas, but 2 additional people would be unloading juice and water pallets with me and make me go to lunch with them and on breaks. I quit in March to move to VA, but I would never work there again. Have you ever had a job where they gave you way too much work to do? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
My job of sitting here listening to you makes me lose my mind.
Lady called the police because I was wearing a hoodie. I work at a somewhat large gas station. While we are given a jacket with the store logo on it, there are 8 cashiers. And even if lockdown wasn't a thing, that's just not sanitary. Our normal uniform is a pair of black pants and a bright polo with the store logo. So it was pretty cold yesterday, and I was wearing my hoodie because the store is built very cheap and isn't insulated. The ceiling is just bare metal. I was sitting in the chair for a couple of minutes by the eating area because it was pretty slow when I saw a car pull in, so I went back behind the counter. Here comes delusional lady. She walks up to the counter and asked,
Excuse me, where is the cashier?
Me. You're looking at him. What can I do for you? Delusional lady.
I come here every morning and I've never seen you. You don't even have the uniform.
Now, the reason that's irrelevant is because I always work late evenings, so I've never seen this lady in my life. I probably haven't been awake before 2 p.m. in a year. Me. Oh, sorry about that. It's just cold in here and the heat doesn't really work. So I took off my hoodie to prove to this lady that I did in fact work here. She then pulled out her phone as 2 other customers walked in and a line formed behind her. Delusional lady.
This guy doesn't work here. I think he's stealing. I'm calling the police.
As she walked off to the sitting area and dialed for the police. Meanwhile, I guess the other 2 people realized she was an idiot and let me ring them up. She watched the entire time, telling the police I was pocketing money. When they arrived, we ended up having to call my manager to the store to explain that I did in fact work there. They let her off with a warning and banned her from the store. The police wouldn't let the store stay open for the entire hour it took the manager to get there. I was never detained as it was obvious I worked there, but they insisted on talking to the manager. And did I mention I'm the assistant manager? I just got off the phone with the IRS. I hope you enjoyed prison. Well, I never thought I'd post here. It's tax season, so this memory popped in my head again. Just a little backstory. My mother is a massive narcissist. She acts as if everyone owes her everything, especially money. She is by far the most entitled person I've ever met. A month after my 19th birthday, so this was in November, I decided I wanted to move to a different state with my now husband. We'd been together for 2 years at that point. In 2 weeks, and we would finish paying my mother's bills until we moved. So we told my mom's wife first, since she was home, and asked why I wasn't in class that night. She was supportive and said she just wanted me to be happy, and I knew she was going to get to school. We were all in college, taking night classes, and tell my mother. Sure enough, that's what happened. My mother leaves school early that night. She's screaming and yelling at my now husband about how he's garbage, the reason everything had happened in my life since the moment I was born, etc. So he says, "Forget you," and walks away to start packing. My mother is yelling at me because I didn't defend her. I didn't say anything at all, and she's mad. She tells her wife she doesn't want us there, and her wife says to kick us out then, so she does just that. I told her we didn't have money or a place to go until payday, and she said she didn't care. January rolls around and she's being nice, asking how I'm doing, saying she misses me, etc. I thought it was sketchy, but my big heart was giving her a chance. Day 2 of talking to her again, and she says,
When you get your W-2, take a picture of it so I can do your taxes for you.
I'm thinking nothing of it because she has done it since I was 16. Well, I get them early. My husband's uncle shows me how to file my taxes and do it correctly, so I don't have to rely or wait on anyone to do it. She finds out come February 1st that I've already filed them, and it sent her into a rage.
Did you get your W-2 yet?
Me, trying to keep it brief. Yes, and I already filed my taxes.
You did what?
Me, confused. Yeah, husband's uncle showed me how to do it properly, so I don't have to wait on anyone to do it for me anymore.
Did you put that anyone can claim you as a dependent?
Me, getting a bit nervous. No, The website I used asked me questions and I answered them correctly, which is how I know I couldn't be claimed.
That was my money, the lady brute. You stole my money from me. You lied on your taxes, and you can go to prison for that. I'm going to call the IRS on you.
Her trying to scare me because she knew how I was. She hangs up. I start to get worried because I believed everything she had ever said up until that moment, but also realizing she's full of crap as I'm now talking to my husband's aunt and uncle about it. We were all in the car. My phone rings 32 seconds later and it's my mother.
I just got off the phone with the IRS. You're going to prison for the rest of your life.
Me, laughing. Okay, sure. Entitled mom huffs, then hangs up. From that moment on, I realized she was completely full of crap because growing up, she dealt with the IRS a lot and would be on hold for hours before reaching someone to talk to, so there was absolutely no way she reached someone that fast. Karen takes my parking spot, I get her car towed. I live in an apartment building that comes with one spot in a parking garage. My spot is the one closest to the elevator. 2 weeks ago, the apartment manager comes to me to talk and asked if I would be willing to give up my spot since a disabled woman was moving in. I said sure, I would be happy to switch spaces. He said I misunderstood. He was asking me to give up a space in the garage entirely. He explained that she used a van with a powered ramp, that she would need 2 spaces to be able to use it. I told him I would not give up my space. I pointed out to him that the parking spot was part of my lease. Last week, I came home and there was a large van with disabled plates parked next to my spot. I pulled in, parking as far from it as I could. The next day, I get a call from a woman at about 7:30 a.m. She said that she was the owner of the van and needed me to move my car. I wasn't happy. I had still been asleep, but I went down to move my car. She did the same thing the next 3 days. The next morning, a Saturday, she called me at 5:30 a.m. and I told her she had to be kidding. I went down and told her that I don't wake up normally until 8:30 a.m. and I would appreciate it if she didn't call before then. She told me that she had plans and not to be a jerk. I reminded her that I was doing her a favor by coming down. That evening, 5:30 p.m., when I got home, the van was parked partially in my space so that I couldn't use it. I had her number, so I called. When she picked up, she said something snarky like,
"Isn't it annoying to have to wait on someone?"
I told her the difference was I could have her towed, and if she wasn't down here in 5 minutes, I would. She told me I wouldn't dare and hung up on me. I waited the 5 minutes and called the tow company. It took the company about 30 minutes to get there and tow the car from my space. She never came down. She calls at 6:30 p.m. I picked up and she started screaming. I just hung up on her. She called back, still screaming. I hung up again. About 30 minutes later, I got a knock on the door and she and the apartment manager were there. She asked me what the heck I was thinking having her van towed. I told her that is what I'm supposed to do if my space is blocked, and I did warn her first. The apartment manager said we needed to come to a compromise. I said that I did not need to compromise. According to my lease, I am entitled to a parking spot. I never agreed to be woken up early every day, and I certainly never agreed to give up my spot entirely. She said that she was promised a spot she could use. What was she supposed to do? I told her that she needed to work that out with him, pointing at apartment manager, and leave me out of it. I am done running every time she calls. She called me a jerk as they left. I feel bad. There aren't any extra spots. It's one per apartment. This isn't her fault, but it isn't mine either. Am I the jerk for not making more of an effort to help? Edit. Info I should have put in to begin with. There are no additional spaces. It is one space per apartment in the building, with no extras. The way the garage is laid out, I don't see a way to give her the extra space without removing one of the spaces. The apartment manager has offered to reduce my rent if I give up my spot entirely. I refused. I live in an area of town that has truly awful parking. I'm paying about 30% more for my apartment than a similar one in the same area because I want the parking space. I will not give up my space. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you give up your parking spot for her or not? Please let us know.
No way, especially with her being a jerk about it.
Accuse me of stealing? I'll ruin your business and life. This little story of revenge is about how I got even with a former boss and how I destroyed his and his business partner's life in the process. Many years ago, I worked at an electronics repair store that will not be named. It was the only one in our smallish town, so everyone came there. I worked my way up from lowly tech to store manager in roughly 6 months. A few months after I made the store manager, one of the owners, who we will call Dennis, insisted on bringing his nephew in as a part-time employee. Don't get ahead of me, Redditors. I initially didn't have any issue with the kid. He had come to the store on multiple occasions, and we would all sit around in the back and talk. So again, I had no issues with bringing him in on part-time. For a good month or two, the kid, who we will call Kevin, busted his behind, did everything right. He could solder an HDMI port on a PS4 in minutes. One less thing for me to do. Profits for the store were skyrocketing, and things seemed rather fine from where I was standing. I was due to make a fairly large bonus that year as long as the store kept running the amount of money it was turning. I figured at this time we could make Kevin our assistant manager, and I could go back to doing paperwork, inventory orders and such, and leave the running of things to him. Well, mistakes were definitely made. I had a bad habit of writing down my login pin because Dennis and his business partner Jay were idiots and wanted the pin to be many digits long. These pins were required to access everything from sales data to the cash register and more. Anyway, around that time, I was turning over the majority of stuff to Kevin to do. I also started taking classes at the local university. So again, me being the idiot that I was, I would leave to go to class before coming back and finishing my shift. Dennis and Jay were fine with this as long as I left someone competent in charge. Fast forward to the end of the month when accounts receivable numbers were run. And wouldn't you know it, we were short. By thousands that month. I discussed everything with Dennis and Jay, and we assumed it was a computer glitch. There was no way, after almost a year of working there, that the numbers were off. I had never had this happen before. The next month, we were once again off. It was around this time that Dennis and Jay came to me and started accusing me of stealing from them. They pointed out all of the days that the numbers didn't match up and saw that I was always closing that night. When I tried to explain to them that I was in class on those days when the money came up missing and suggested that they look at Kevin, Dennis blew his top. He said, how dare I accuse his nephew of anything, that it was my PIN used to access the register, etc. Needless to say, I was fired. Luckily, they didn't call the cops because in Jay's words, I had made them a boatload of money. Plan. A couple of years had passed since I was working there. I graduated college with a degree in business and had moved on with my life, or so I thought. One night, while I was out at the store, I heard from behind me, "Yo, thief!" As I turn around, I see Kevin and Dennis with grins on their faces. I shrug it off and walk away, continuing to hear their childish taunts. While in my car, I began to formulate a plan. I was going to crush these jerks, no matter how long it took. It took me 2 months of planning, but finally I figured that I would use my social engineering skills and my business savvy to completely crush their business. I broke the HDMI port on my PS4 on purpose and took it in to have it fixed. Kevin and a girl that had started there a few weeks earlier were the only two working. Kevin: "Hey, welcome to such and such." "Oh, it's you, thief. What can I help you with?" Me: "First off, you can stop calling me that. You and I both know it's BS." Kevin: "Sorry, dude. Dennis told me to call you that. I'm sorry how everything went down. What can I help you with?" Me: "My HDMI port broke. Do you guys still repair them?" "Yeah, we will still repair them. It's $115. Me: "Dang, you guys went up in price. Good on you. So how's everything been since I left?" "You mean since you were fired for stealing?" Me: "Yeah, whatever. We both know that's BS." I knew Kevin was trying to impress the girl, but didn't care at that minute. We'll come back to her. As I glanced around, I saw that they had added some new things to the store, including OtterBox cases and such. Me: "Whoa, that's new. How did you guys manage to get in with OtterBox?" Kevin: "Oh, we didn't. They kept turning us down, so I found a Chinese distro. We get them for $5 and sell them for $30. Me, thinking to myself, this dude loves to blab. I need him to keep it up. Me: "So, how much have the prices gone up on other things?" Kevin: "Oh, quite a bit actually. You thought you were turning this store for a profit? Let me show you something." He showed me their new price list, which was insane at the pricing and also a big mistake. Revenge is mine. I never believed in ripping anyone off, so I always convinced Dennis and Jay our pricing was fair and that they didn't need to charge a lot for repairs. Since they were the only game in town, they had everyone coming here. After the work was finished, I said goodbye and made sure to wave to the girl as I walked out. This is when my plan really went into motion. I had everything I needed to crush these jerks, all except a building. The next day, I looked around for a location to begin to dismantle their monopolistic hold on the town. As luck would have it, a location right across the street from their store was coming up for rent. I quickly signed the lease and began to distribute flyers letting the town know about our coming grand opening. On the flyer, I was offering 90% off the first repair. Basically, I was doing the work for free. All they had to do was pay the part price. Opening day comes and I have 60 people there to get repairs, ranging from iPhone screen repairs to simple PC tune-ups. This went on like this for months. Sure, I was taking a loss on the building rent, but this being a smallish town, the rent was easily manageable. After things started to settle down and business became steady, Dennis and Jay started losing massive business due to the new guy in town. They still hadn't realized it was me. Jane walked in as I was closing up shop. Jane, if you recall, was the girl who worked for Dennis that Kevin was trying to hit on. Apparently, she had been let go that night and was looking for another job. I immediately gave her the job because she knew her crap. I asked her what all had happened over there, and she said everything has gone to crap and that the store has been losing tens of thousands since the place opened, and that she would have left sooner if she didn't need the job. Kevin apparently really liked her and couldn't keep his hands to himself. A month after Jane came in, Dennis and Jay came in to see who their new competition was. As they walked in, I greeted them as I do any customer. Me: "Welcome to the new guy's electronic repair. How can I help you?" Dennis: "Does the owner know he hired a thief?" Me: "Oh, I'm sure he knows. You're full of it on that one." Dennis: "Get me your manager, you thief." Me: "Sir, I am the manager. How can I help you?" Dennis: "Well, is the owner here?" Me: "Yes, sir, he is." "Good, then go get him, so that I can tell him what a thief you are." Me: "Sure, 1 minute." I walk into the back and start talking to Jane. We both enjoy a laugh because she overheard this dude. I walk out of the back and look at Dennis. Me: "How can I help you?" "You can stop playing games and get me your owner." Me, pointing to the sign behind me: "Yeah, that's me. How can I help you?" Dennis: "You're the one that has been taking all of our business?" Me: "Yep. You called me a thief when you knew all along it was your nephew that was stealing from you. I made it my life's mission to destroy you the day you and Kevin called me a thief in the store. You couldn't just leave me alone." Jay: "You mean to tell me that this is his fault?" Looking at Dennis. Me: "Yup, and yours as well. You had a chance to stick up for me and you didn't. If I can't assist you gentlemen with a repair or anything, I kindly ask that you leave my store." Dennis: "Forget you. You haven't heard the end of us." This quite literally cracked me up. The dude trying to talk tough. I laughed as they stormed out of my store. About this time, Jane comes from out of the back area and dropped her phone. I bent down to pick it up and noticed that it was the fake OtterBoxes that the other store was selling. I made an anonymous tip to OtterBox regarding them selling counterfeits. Boy, let me tell you, OtterBox doesn't play around. Within a week, the other store was raided. Kevin, Dennis, and Jay were all arrested for selling counterfeit items and were sued into bankruptcy. And as for Jane and I, we just welcomed our first child into the world and have been married for a year and a half. If you're reading this, Kevin, little jerk thief, not only did I cost you and your uncle everything, but I also took your woman. Edit. Cannot believe that I have to add this in here, because some people cannot read between the lines. OtterBox is the one who got them raided by the police. OtterBox doesn't do the raiding. Have you ever had a coworker lie about you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Every coworker I ever had lied about me. They acted like I was the worst person in the world.
Am I the jerk for telling my husband to stop using my vehicle? I'm 34, female, and my husband, who's 36, has a long history of buying himself nice things and expecting everyone else in the family, we have 2 kids, to only have very cheap and/or hand-me-downs. For example, he buys himself the newest iPhone when they come out, and he gives me his old one. When he wants to read a book, he buys the digital book, audiobook, and physical copy, so he can read however he wants whenever he wants. But when my kids want to do activities, I have to save and find ways to pay for them, sometimes out of things like bonuses I make at work. Recently, I found out my husband racked up $70,000 in credit card debt, So I took over our finances to try to do whatever I could to pull us out of debt. Also note, I am the breadwinner. Over the year, I work approximately twice as many hours as him and make over twice as much money. I don't care a lot about that, but I really feel like our money should be more equal than me supporting his habits. I really hate materialism, which is why this has gone on for so long, but I'm so tired of how unequal it all seems. So here's the am I the jerk part. Every time we have purchased a new vehicle since we have been married, my husband picks it out and he gets to drive the new vehicle and I get the older one. The last time this happened, we agreed that the next new-to-us vehicle would be mine. About 9 months ago, he got into an accident and totaled our car. Like he agreed, I got to pick out the replacement vehicle and we said it was mine. It's even only in my name. Since the day we bought the newest vehicle home, he keeps taking it everywhere. He drives it to work, he takes it shopping, etc. I explained this frustrates me because he removed my items from the vehicle, leaves trash in it, and he takes it when I need it too. This has continued for 9 months. It was recently such a big mess that he had to clean it all out before I could use it again. I finally said he needs to stop using it as his primary vehicle. It's supposed to be my primary vehicle. He thought this was a joke and made more jokes about it today. I finally told him that he just needs to stop using it and needs to ask me for permission to use it. He seems to think this is ridiculous, but has reluctantly agreed. Am I the jerk? Edit. I know this is not the biggest issue, and I've been taking a lot of steps to resolve the other issues, especially finances. At this time, I now have complete control of our finances. He has also agreed to this. The financial situation is a long story/issue in itself. I know I'm not the jerk in the financial situation. I was just asking about this specific situation, since in the US, vehicles are marital assets. Edit 2. Answering a lot of the common questions. I was referring to the vehicle situation as not being the biggest issue. The financial problems obviously are a huge issue. I know I'm not the jerk about our financial situation. I found out about this in November and we've been working through it. The only reason I've considered staying with him after that is he has given me full transparency and is helping me come up with solutions to pay it down. He has now given me access to his credit report and he has been transparent about everything since I found out about the debt. There were no surprises. I ran my kids' credit reports. There's nothing on them. He has bipolar disorder. He's currently in weekly therapy and sees a psychiatrist every 4 to 6 weeks for med regulation. He does not have a spending addiction. We've specifically asked his therapist to assess this. Excess spending can be a sign of mania. We are looking for a marriage counselor, but it's been hard to find one outside my work hours, and I cannot risk my job right now. We are still looking. I'm not sure how this is relevant, but some people seem to think he's the stepdad to our kids. He is the stepdad for the oldest. We have primary custody. He is the biological dad for the youngest. I may not stay in this marriage. I've been considering leaving and have consulted with an attorney. I was just wondering if I was the jerk in this situation about the vehicles, but it seems clearly not. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her husband? Please let us know.
$70,000? Those must have been some good audiobooks he was listening to.
My boss scared off rude customers by literally taking a closer look. I used to work at a store run by a woman named Irene. She would buy vintage and high-end items, repair them, and then sell them in the store. We didn't have multiple sizes of things, and the only bulk items we bought were little trinkets and soaps, sometimes jewelry. One day, when Irene had gone out to get more supplies, the jerk couple walked in. The wife, who was on the wrong foot the moment she opened her mouth, Jerkina seemed to think we were her slaves, that she was the queen of the world and everything had to be in her size. Her husband, Vernon, would grunt and repeat what she said in a more nasally aggressive voice. It was the longest 2 hours of my life. We had everything organized by size and did not have extras in the back. After explaining that to Jerkina for the 100th time, I was about to throw a purse at her head.
This is not my size. Why don't you have my size?
I told her to maybe look at a larger size rack, because obviously she was not a 2. She was a 6.
No. I am a 2. I have always been a 2. I was a 2 when I had my kids. I am a 2 now.
Vernon repeated the same thing.
No, she is a 2. A 2.
Irene came in while the happy couple was shopping and asked what the problem was to me, because I had that look. I explained the woman was being picky. Eventually, the woman stormed up again with a pair of pants, demanding I read her the size. I told her the size, a 6, and she said,
I am a 2, not a 6. Why do I fit into these?
Irene ended up speaking with her. Those are a 6. If you fit into them, then you are not a 2. Jerkina got silent, turned to her husband, and waved the pants around. Vernon said,
Now listen here. I don't like the way you guys have been helping my wife. She asks questions and gets attitude. You should use your eyes and actually look at the tag and see if there's a problem. She wants to know the size. Tell her the size.
Irene agrees. Sure, I will take a closer look. She puts the pants on the counter, pops out her glass eye, and holds it close to the tag. Still a 6. I start laughing so hard I have to sit down. The couple sputtered, waved their hands around like blind birds, and stormed out. They left a huge mess I had to help clean up, but only after I spent 20 minutes laughing about it with Irene and the other cashier, Helen. Irene gave me the money to get us all coffee. We closed early and we cleaned up the store. Irene was the best boss I ever had. I was sad when I had to move for college. Wholesome I don't work here lady, where I made 2 friends. I'm disabled, so I have a caregiver who comes a few days a week to help with stuff. On Wednesdays, we go to the stores. This Wednesday, we made a couple new friends because a lady thought my caregiver worked at the store because my caregiver was wearing the same color green shirt the store employees wear. When we walked in and there was an old lady, maybe in her 70s or 80s, and obviously off-kilter at the front counter having a heated argument, not sure what about. As we were walking past, the old gal says something like,
Forget you. I'm done talking to you. This lady will help me.
And turns to my caregiver. The cashier went to tell the gal she doesn't work there, but my caregiver, seeing the old gal was shook up and having a rough day, interrupted to ask her what she needed. Turns out she just needed help shopping. She was visually impaired and couldn't find what she had needed. Her daughter, who usually takes her shopping, is in the hospital and she has no one else. That's what the loud argument was about. She had called the store before she left her house to see that an employee could help her shop if she came in. But after she walked all the way down there with a walker, they said no one was available to help her. She got super upset about it because she was out of food and couldn't manage to return later because it was hard enough to get there once. Being as she's kind of surly, it quickly escalated. So we helped her shop. Well, my caregiver did. I kind of just tagged along. The gal eventually asked why I was following them everywhere and if I needed something. We explained what was going on, that she doesn't work there, and that we were doing our own shopping. She said she was embarrassed, but grateful for the help. The lady was very funny. As old as she was, she swore enough to make a grown man blush. We wound up giving her a ride home, and she made my van smell like cigarettes and asked for us to stop at the liquor store so she could get some wine on the way home. She couldn't stand Trump and was sure that all the employees at the store must be fans of his. When we got to her apartment and I put my number in her phone and told her we could take her to the store with us every week till her daughter gets well enough to do so. She's going to be in the hospital for at least a few weeks. I also texted her daughter from my number from her phone and let her know what's up. Because her mom seemed mentally declined, I wanted her daughter to know what's up. I've been texting her daughter and we are now text buddies, sort of. She's my age and has relatable health issues, so that's cool. It's been years since I've made a friend. My project next week is to try and get her mom signed up for a senior meal delivery service we have here. I actually think I'm going to make a list of all the low-income senior social services we have here and offer to help her get signed up, because I guess I need a hobby because I have nothing better to do. I'm really looking forward to going to the store next week. I usually hate it, and visiting with this gal. So yeah, no one was a Karen about anything or was rude to us. Just kind of a wholesome I don't work here lady where I made a couple of new friends. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my daughter's classmate sit next to my daughter at her birthday? I'm 37, female, and my daughter, who's 9, is deaf. She goes to a school for the deaf on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and a public school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She prefers the deaf school over the hearing school, as at the deaf school she can just sign with her friends and doesn't need to talk through someone else, as she puts it. I have another daughter who's hearing and the same age as her who also goes to the same public school, and she knows sign, so that's kind of the only kid in her class she can communicate with without the interpreter. Well, she turned 9 last Sunday. There are 8 kids in her class at deaf school and 17 kids in her class in public school, so we were able to invite all of them to the party. There's no lockdown in my area. We had the party at my house. It was fun. Mostly everyone hung out outside and we rented a bounce house that all the kids seemed to enjoy. Well, for pizza and everything, we set up these 3 rows of picnic tables side by side. Basically, it looked like one long table with fold-up chairs. When it came time for pizza, my daughter wanted to sit at the end of the table. There were about 3 seats on each side per area of the table. My daughter was mostly sitting with her friends from the deaf school and her sister. All the seats around her were taken, and her friends were all signing and just having fun. Then a girl from her public school came up to me and asked if she could sit next to my daughter. I kindly said that there were already people sitting there and showed her where there were other empty seats, but they were nowhere near my daughter. She said she wanted to sit next to my daughter again. I asked if she knew sign. Not rudely or anything, but the conversation everyone near her was having was in sign. She said no, but that my other daughter could interpret. I had mixed emotions. On the one hand, I don't want to move any of my daughter's friends who are having fun, and I don't want to make my other daughter interpret. Also, my daughter who's having the party is always complaining about needing an interpreter, and I don't want to make her have to have one on her birthday. But on the other hand, she's a guest at my house, and she's not asking for something unreasonable. I just tried to point her towards some other open seats, but she started to get very upset. Another mom came over and dealt with her, and I saw her sitting with some other kids later, and she seemed to be having a good time. My daughter says she barely knows her, and they are just partners in math, and my daughter that goes to the public school full-time told me that she said she only wanted to sit there because that's where they were serving cake first. I called my sister yesterday and gave her a little recap of the party, and she said that I should have let her sit with my daughter, and now I feel like the jerk. Am I the jerk? Should I have just let her sit with my daughter? After all, she was my guest. What do you think? Should she have let her sit there or not? Please let us know.
No way. That kid just wanted the cake.
Am I the jerk for yelling at a lady who untied my dog while I was grocery shopping? I take my high-energy border collie for daily walks. A few days ago, I was discussing with my husband how strange I think it is when people come up and ask to pet my dog when we are out and about. Always older, overly friendly women. Sometimes these walks involve errands where I tie my dog's leash to a bike rack out front. This morning, we walked to the grocery store to pick up a few things, and I left my dog tied securely at his usual spot. As I'm heading inside, an older woman says to me,
"What's your dog's name?"
I thought to myself, oh no, I don't want to engage with her. So I just gave her a short glance and told her, and I raced into the store. I spend 5 minutes inside the store, then come back out and see this woman holding my dog. She had apparently untied him and moved him to a new spot. As I walk out, I gave her the death stare and said, "What are you doing?" She explained that she thought the spot I left him in was too wet, so she wanted to move him to the other side of the building. Then she couldn't hook the leash up, so she just decided to wait with him until I returned. I lost it on her outside of the store and told her to never touch my dog again, or he may bite her, and she should never move other people's dogs without them knowing. Now I feel somewhat guilty for yelling at her when she was probably just clueless and trying to help. Am I the jerk for yelling and leaving my dog unattended when I know this behavior exists where I live? Or is she to blame for moving and touching my dog without my permission? Edit. She was trying to move my dog to the designated dog leash hookup spot with water bowls. Unfortunately, my leash does not hook up to it. It is very common where I live to leave your dog outside while you run into a shop. Edit 2. Thank you everyone for your feedback and schooling me on dog theft. Truly never crossed my mind it could be an issue in this town. I've now decided that my pooch will be staying at home for my walks that involve errands. Edit 3. I just came back from the same store, Sans Dog, and the same lady was there. Looks like she works there out front, sanitizing and returning carts, so any speculation that she was in the process of stealing my dog can be debunked. Edit 4. The conversation with my husband and us thinking it's strange for people to ask to pet our dog was in the context of everything going on right now in social distancing. Under normal circumstances, this obviously would be fine, but older, aka more at risk, women wanting to rub their hands all over something that they don't know where it's been seems strange. Plus, coming close enough to pet the dog is breaking social distancing guidelines. Am I the jerk for taking vacation and leaving my husband with every single house duty there is for 4 days? My husband and I have been together for 8 years, recently married 15 months ago. We have a 4-year-old son. For the past 3 years, I have worked from home. Such a godsend. 12-hour shifts, 4 days a week. It's a struggle because my husband gets home from work at 1 a.m. and takes 2 to 3 hours to unwind, so he doesn't get to bed until maybe 3 or 4 a.m. and sleeps basically all day until he has to leave for work. On his days off, he spends that with me and our son, obviously. But I have noticed that as time goes on, he does less and less around the house. Before this, he would make dinner on his days off, take care of all of his son's needs, and do basic cleaning so that I could have a breather. Now he doesn't make dinner at all, falls asleep on the couch by 7, so I have son duty 24/7 and hasn't lifted a finger to clean in weeks. So on my 3 days off a week, I end up having to deep clean my entire house because I don't have time to do anything on my work days aside from the bare minimum. 2 weeks ago, I asked him for some help. He happily obliged for all of 30 minutes before taking off to go help a buddy with his car and didn't do jack squat after returning home because he was tired. I needed a break. I told him this. His way of comforting me was by hugging me and saying, "You're doing such a good job." Didn't offer to help or anything. So I made a plan. Asked my mom to take my son for 4 days and planned a vacation for myself with work. I dropped my son off yesterday with my mom. I only did this because my husband obviously works, and took off to our cabin 58 miles away to relax. My husband started texting me last night asking where I was. I told him the cabin. He asked where our son was, so I told him. He then started going off about how this is selfish of me, and that if he had realized I wasn't merely stressed out, that he would have helped out more. Used the argument that he too is stressed out and tired. He claims my communication on the issue was terrible and that I could have been more open and laid it out. Says that I'm the jerk for taking a vacation without him because he could have used it too. But the thing is, I straight out told him that I needed a break. I asked him for help. He disregarded it all. But now I'm curious if I'm the jerk. ETA. Our conversation went exactly as I wrote them above, so maybe I was lacking in the communication department. Entitled parents won't let me keep my computer that my friend bought for me. While reading some of the posts here, I was reminded of a story about my parents that happened a few years ago. Cast. We've got me. We've got entitled dad, my dad. We've got entitled stepmom, my dad's wife. Quick background. This story happened 2 years after I graduated high school. After I graduated, I decided to go study in a city away from my parents, so I had to rent an apartment. Despite the fact that they were wealthy enough and that high school went perfectly fine, no doubt that I was going to graduate. My parents, and especially entitled stepmom, refused to pay for my apartment. I had no money whatsoever, so my grandparents intervened and decided to pay for the rent each month. The only money I was getting from my parents was my mother's alimony paid to my dad because I was still a student. I'm a gamer and a nerd, and at the time I was playing World of Warcraft, still am to this day, but I was playing with a crappy laptop that was getting slower and slower. An in-game friend of mine in my guild, who I became quite close friends with, bought me a computer and surprised me with it when I invited him for a LAN with other friends from the same guild. I was ecstatic and so grateful for this. Now on to the story. 2 years pass and I graduate with a 2-year diploma. I decided to pursue engineering school, and the one I got into was in another city, so I had to move out. As I had 2 months before starting school again, I moved all my belongings into my parents' garage, including said computer. My dad knew I had it because I already told him about it. Never told entitled stepmom because it was pointless to me. The next day, I went to spend some holiday weeks at my grandparents' holiday house. While on the train, I received a message from both my parents, entitled dad and entitled stepmom, and this conversation happened. Entitled dad and entitled stepmom.
What the heck is that computer in the garage?
Me. Well, it's my computer.
How did you get it? With what money?
A friend gifted it to me. Already told dad about it.
That's a BS story.
At that point, I was really getting frustrated, so I tell them they can call me when I get to my grandparents' place. A few hours later, I'm at my grandparents' and they call me. The exact same conversation ensues, and they do not believe me on how I got the computer. So my entitled dad has the bright idea to ask my friend to give me the invoice of the computer. It was a pre-built tower, so he could trust me. I contact the friend to see if that's possible, and I was so embarrassed to ask him because I told him the exact reason I needed it. He said no problem and sent it to me, so I sent it to my dad. I thought they were convinced, but they were still scolding me for having that computer. Fast forward a few weeks, and I'm back at my parents' house because I need to move for engineering school. I try to pack my things, but they refuse to let me get back my computer. At that point, I was 21 years old, and I was making my own money because my engineering school was an apprenticeship, so I was a student and an employee. Me. You can't possibly tell me to leave it here. You didn't even pay for it. Entitled dad and entitled stepmom.
We don't care. You're not taking your gaming computer to school.
No point in arguing, so I went away without it. Unfortunately for them, I try hard to get the things I want. I knew they were going on vacation somewhere on the other side of the world in December. So what did I do before they left? I ordered a new computer case and asked a friend of mine if she could send me her old spare parts. I knew she had some because a few months before I gave her some parts because I upgraded mine. While my parents were away, I went to my parents, brought the new case and the old parts, and installed the old parts in the old case and transferred my computer parts into the new case. I left the old case in the garage and took my computer with me. It has been a few years now, and I have been authorized to have my computer back. They still don't know. Edit. Well, I made my parents sound way worse than they are. It was more of an isolated episode, and my relationship with them has greatly improved over the past 3 years. But I won't forget that. Have you ever had someone try to take something that belonged to you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
You take my sanity every day, Reddit boy.
Why are you wearing a blue beanie then? I've been a long-time lurker here and have been debating telling this story. This was before lockdown hit and when my social anxiety was pretty bad. My fiance and I are huge gamers, and we moved to a city that had a buy of the bests pretty close. So naturally, my fiance and I visited quite a bit. That day, I was wearing a plaid shirt, love me some plaid, some blue jeans, sneakers, and the star of the show, my favorite blue beanie, that I also stole from my fiance. Again, this is the buy of the bests. Uniforms are blue polos with store logos and black slacks. I was looking through the games while my fiance was a few aisles over looking at the records, when all of a sudden, a wild man-child appears. Cast, we've got me, we've got fiance, and we've got the man-child. I'm trying to decide what RPG I want to buy to put on my shelf and maybe play in the next year, while literally sitting on the floor. I'm tall, so it hurts to lean over to see the bottom shelves. I hear someone behind me, and I don't really think much of it as the store was decently packed. Man-child.
Hey, I need to get a laptop out of the lockup. I've been waiting by them and no one has helped me yet.
I'm still on the floor with my head in the game rack, sifting through poorly organized games, not even noticing he was talking to me, as an employee just asked me if I needed help about 2 minutes before. So I figured he was talking to the same employee. Man-child.
Hello? Are you going to help me or just waste my time?
I realized that something was going on, so I glanced behind me thinking an employee was being rude. Meanwhile, this guy was maybe 2 feet right behind me, so when I turned around to look, I just have some random dude's junk in my face. I look up to see why he's so close. He was wearing a baseball cap, brown work pants, a white shirt, and a blue jacket. The jacket comes into play later, and had a look of pretentiousness. Kind of like his time is worth more than a peasant's life. Man-child.
Finally, you get your head out of your butt. Now hurry up. My wife is still waiting and I need a laptop for my son.
I finally stand up, not only because of the view I was forced to see, but because my fight or flight kicked in for a moment. As soon as I stand up, I back away a good 6 feet or so and just look at him, trying to figure out how to respond. Jerk.
What? Are you going to run away because I asked for help? Why did they hire an idiot like you?
Me, under my breath and slightly exaggerating my words. But I don't work here.
What was that? Come on, be a big boy and speak up.
Me, a bit louder, but still quiet. I don't work here. I'm just looking at games. This whole time, I'm just in a mental whirlwind as to why this is happening. I was not in a uniform, nor was I organizing anything, just flipping through games. At the same time, my anxiety is telling me to run to my fiance and hide. Jerk.
You don't work here?
Me. No, I'm sorry.
Then why are you wearing a blue beanie then? Forget you. You wasted so much of my time.
At this point, he stormed off to find an actual employee, and I just sat there trying to figure out why a blue beanie, of all things, made him think that I worked there. After being confused for a bit, I basically ran to find my fiance. After finding him, I told him all that happened, and I could see both confusion and anger slowly come over his face, followed by a very upset, "Oh no!" Then he storms off while I realize what or who he is going towards. I'm still incredibly highly anxious over it, so I try to talk him down as he walks towards the man. He asked what he looked like, and stupid me didn't know why until it was too late. My fiance is the sweetest man ever, but when it comes to me, he is very protective. That, and he is a very tall Nordic man with a full beard and can be pretty intimidating when angry. He walks up to the man, who is now with an actual employee getting his laptop out of the cases, Meanwhile, I hide in an aisle while still keeping an eye on him. Fiancé to jerk. Hey, I've been waiting forever, and you're just sitting here talking to your friend? The poor employee looked beyond confused as to what was happening, but just kept out of it. Jerk.
What the heck are you talking about? Who even are you?
Fiancé. A customer. So are you going to help me, or are you just going to sit there?
Dude, are you stupid? I don't work here, so buzz off.
Fiancé. Then why are you wearing the blue jacket? Manchild went from angry to confused real fast at that. Ironic.
Why would my jacket mean I work here?
I don't know. You thought a beanie meant my fiancé did? Sounds pretty stupid coming from someone else, huh, you idiot? At this point, Manchild saw me in the aisle overwatching. His face just went pale as snow. Fiancé, learn some respect, and while you're at it, try to find those brain cells you lost on the way. My fiancé walks away, and I immediately run behind him, and we get out of the store before the employee called security on us for his yelling. I didn't hear anything behind me, but I also didn't dare to look back. Being very anxious about confrontations, I was pretty upset at first with my fiancé, but when I calmed down, I realized it was him standing up for me, and it was pretty dang funny actually. We avoided that store for a good month and just went to one a bit further away after. Won't leave? Okay, hope you don't mind no power and being arrested. So I work at a small motel. We have 30 to 40 rooms available, and normally I work the night shift. Despite the many crazy stories on this thread from night shift, mine are usually pretty quiet. The last couple days, I've been covering the day shift, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., while a coworker is out sick. 2 days ago, I checked in a couple for a night. Everything goes smoothly. Yesterday, they paid for an additional night. All good, people do that here frequently, and we had a storm moving in, so I think they didn't want to travel in the snow. However, yesterday, the red flag started when myself and our maintenance man noticed someone else trying to get into the room with a key. It wouldn't work because the room had been deadbolted from the inside. I didn't think anything of it, but our maintenance guy came in the office later and said he's seen at least 3 different people go in and out of the room, all different from the person whose name is on the room. Okay, there could be a simple explanation, but I'm starting to think this might involve drugs. Fast forward to this morning. The guest who was in the room next door comes to the front desk right at 9 a.m., visibly exhausted, saying that the couple in the room next door had woken him up at 6 that morning with a screaming argument. I apologized profusely and agreed to give him a late checkout so he could get a few more hours of sleep. He was actually very reasonable about the incident and more of the "I can't believe people wouldn't have the common courtesy in a motel" kind of attitude. Once he left to go back to his room, I put a note on the other room that their stay would not be extended and they would be checking out that day. The day gets started and I'm checking people out and extending stays where requested, staying consistently busy the whole time, so I don't even realize until noon that the guests of the room in question have neither checked out nor come to pay for an additional day. They would have checked out with the front desk as they had left a cash deposit for incidentals and such, and rarely is a person going to walk out on cash money. So I call the number for the guest and let him know that checkout time has passed and he will need to vacate the room and come check out. He assured me that he would be there within 15 minutes. I know, don't get ahead of me. Time passes and he does not come down. Due to some smaller issues that cropped up, about 35 minutes ended up passing. I tried calling the guest again. This time, no answer. They also will not answer the door for our housekeeper. When he knocked on the door, he was greeted with silence and, because they had deadbolted the door, our master keys wouldn't open the door. At this point, I was frustrated, but there wasn't much that I could do. For those of you wondering, at this point, I was by myself at the desk because the manager is out sick. So yeah, I did what I could do though and called the non-emergency police number. I explained the situation and they sent an officer on over. The officer went with me to the room, did the police knock with announcement, silence from the room. There was no movement of the drapes, and with them closed, we could not see evidence of anyone being present or absent. The police officer was apologetic to the cause, but let me know that without a known emergency, there really wasn't anything he could do. He did tell me that we were certainly within our rights to remove them from the property, and he would be willing to come back to supervise while we broke through the door, if we decided to go that route. He then left. It's now just after 1 p.m. Since the guest was not answering the phone and not really sure what else to do, since we did not want to have to break down the door, I tried sending a text message to the guest's phone from our office cell phone. It was short and sweet. "Sir, this is Hotel XYZ. I am verifying that you have left the hotel and checked out." I honestly did not expect a reply. Imagine my surprise when, a few minutes later, a reply came back. It was even shorter than mine. Thumbs up emoji. I took this to mean that either they had already left or they would be leaving shortly. I was wrong. While helping another guest at approximately 4:30, I happened to see someone, who was not one of the two people who had originally rented the room, peek their head out of the room as if to check if the coast was clear. As soon as he saw me, he ducked back into the room. I was now very frustrated, but at least we had confirmation that they were still there. Not sure what to do, the maintenance man and I put our heads together. He said he had a crowbar and was willing to break in with the police here. So I sent the following text message. "I just saw someone poke their head out of the room which you said you had vacated. You have 30 minutes to leave. If you are not gone, we will be calling the police back and breaking into the room." There was no immediate response. We contacted the police, but were told it would be a bit, since this was a non-emergency and they didn't have officers available at the moment. They would, however, dispatch one as soon as someone was available. Yay, small towns with small police forces. Anyway, maintenance man didn't want to try breaking in without the police there, so we had to wait. So much for an ultimatum, because they certainly did not leave by 5. Anyway, I was finally able to get a hold of our GM and briefly explain the situation to him while apologizing for disturbing his rest and recovery. He was not in favor of breaking the door, because then you have to replace it. Money. But did give us an ingenious option, provided there were no pregnant women or kids in the room, of which there were neither. Turn off the power to the room. Such a great idea, especially since, at that time, it was 32 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. So, maintenance man goes to do just that. At approximately the same time, a girl comes up to me at the desk asking to extend the stay on her sister's room another night, cash in hand, and tells me the room number. Lo and behold, it's our troublemakers. I let her know that not only was I not doing that, but that we had been trying to get rid of them all day and they would not answer the door. She said, "Well, that explains why they sent me up here with the money," and then heads back to pass along my message. That is about the time that maintenance man cuts the power to the room. He then went to the room and yelled at them through the door, letting them know that the power would remain off until they left, and if they were still there when the police arrived, we would be pressing charges for trespassing. Wouldn't you know it, suddenly the door opened and people started leaving. Just about that time, I got a text message back from the registered guest saying, "I am not in that room. I left the keys on the dresser." I responded very professionally in my opinion with, "You may have left and not be in the room, but with it in your name, you are responsible for everybody else that was in the room, all of whom refused to vacate. Your name has been placed on the do not rent list for the future." It still took about 45 minutes before everybody who was in the room finally got packed up and left, before the police arrived, dang it. While they left a definite mess in the room, I was just glad to finally get them out of here. It was not until maintenance man had finally gotten into the room that he recognized some of the other people in the room, all of whom had been problem guests that had been removed on prior incidences, mostly due to drugs. They had apparently been trading around who would check into the room to hide that it was the same group. Well, based on the number we saw and the number of people maintenance man recognized, they've hopefully run out of unknown people with IDs to check into the rooms. I'm ready to go back to my nice and quiet night shift, please. Am I the jerk for telling my hiking buddy he needs to stop inviting his roommate along, or I'll stop inviting him? About 2 years ago, I took up hiking again. I grew up in a rural area where I would do it all the time, but I moved to a large city for work, so there wasn't much hiking to do. Well, turns out the city made my mental well-being decline, and hiking made that way better. Guess it has a lot to do with growing up with loads of nature and now living surrounded by concrete. So I started taking long drives to areas I wanted to go at least once every 2 months, a lot more if possible. A friend named James noticed that I disappeared once in a while and asked me what I was doing, so I explained it. He asked if he could come along and I agreed. Since then, he comes along most of the time. Usually, I'm not a big fan of taking anyone along. To drive that point home, I dislike even taking my girlfriend on hikes. The reason I'm fine with James coming is largely because he's there for the same reasons. To unwind, walk, take in the view, and most importantly, he doesn't talk my head off, which is what most people would do. With lockdown, I now have way more time to hike, so we've been going weekly. We go in separate cars. Well, a month ago, he asked if he could bring his roommate along. I said fine. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? This dude was annoying as heck, complaining about being tired after 15 minutes. These hikes are usually at least 4 hours long. Put on the wrong shoes, brought nothing to eat or drink, and just would not shut up. Literally, the entire hike, this dude was complaining about his work, and I even straight up asked him to tone it down. Afterwards, I told James that if he wanted his friend to keep coming, he needed to get him to bring the proper stuff and to, well, shut up, frankly. Next time, same thing. I asked James not to take him again, but James took him anyways. According to James, the dude invited himself basically, and James felt bad because apparently his roommate is depressed and has no friends near since he only moved there a few months ago, so he looks forward to these walks the entire week. We went again last Saturday, and again his roommate was there, and I noticed I now legit dislike these hikes, so I told James to stop inviting his roommate or I'll go back to solo hikes. James got mad since he loves the hikes, but feels like I'm putting him in a position where he gets on bad terms with his roommate and will hurt his feelings. Meanwhile, I think he needs a spine since he clearly also ain't enjoying having him along. So you guys tell me. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Roommate sounds like he talks even more than you, Mr. Reddit.
Someone has never been told no before. This is an old one, but it stuck in my mind as an example of the overprivilege some people have. Hopefully I haven't embellished it too much in the subsequent years of retelling. I'm working as an assistant manager in a shop in the weeks following Christmas one year. We have a display of boxed chocolates and other sweets gifts. There's an older lady perusing this section as I'm tidying shelves, checking stock levels, etc., when I hear a loud, very posh voice.
Excuse me, you there?
Can I help, madam?
Yes, I'm looking for a box of chocolates.
Anything in particular?
Well, just something to replace these.
She had with her, in her hand, a box of chocolates that we sold. That much I could see. I mentioned that I'd be happy to help her find a replacement. I knew these weren't exclusive to us and could be found elsewhere locally, so I asked if she had a receipt.
Oh no, she replied haughtily. I didn't buy them. They were a gift. My grandchildren told me they bought them here.
Ah, okay, that shouldn't be a problem. We're a small town, and I would normally recognize the customer, but we have a few well-off, older people that rarely visit the local shops, and I thought I'd give her the benefit of the doubt. She was a bit superior, but I was determined to be professional and polite. May I just ask, what's the problem with the chocolates you're returning? I asked.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with them. I just don't like them.
It was at this point I became a little suspicious. I'm sorry, could I just see which ones they are? I said. It was at this point, when she held the box out, I could see that they had been opened, the seal broken, and the inner packaging loose. I'm sorry, madam, I told her. This box has been opened. I can't accept a return if the product isn't faulty.
Well, of course it's open. I had to try them. That's how I know I don't like them.
But there's nothing actually wrong with that? They're not moldy or contaminated?
No, I just don't like them.
Her condescending tone was starting to get to me. I'm sorry, madam. I won't be able to accept these for a return as the product was in good condition when we sold them and they've been open since.
This is atrocious. How am I supposed to know if I like something if I can't even open it? I will not be shopping here again.
With that, she stormed out. This might have carried some weight if she had actually ever deigned to shop here in the first place. The audacity to ask for a replacement for a food product that had been in perfectly good condition until she had partially eaten it and that she hadn't paid for it in the first place. True to her word, we never saw her again. Apparently, carrying a stack of games is also a way of saying I'm an employee. I'm a massive Sonic fan, always have been and always will be. I'm 16 and this happened a couple of months ago. Lockdown calmed down a bit before it rised up, so we are in another lockdown again. Anyway, since the first lockdown was over, the shops were all opened, including the game shops. I'm not allowed to use the company names due to privacy reasons after getting a message from a worker, so I agreed to change the post. Because I'm a Sonic fan, I had this crazy idea of getting every single Sonic game available to start my collection. Even games for consoles I don't have, I'll collect because that's how much of a fanboy I am. I found all of the DS, Wii, and PS3 Sonic games and had them stacked up. As I'm walking towards the counter, I hear an entitled jerk behind me. Entitled jerk.
Hey, Pinky.
I have pink hair, so that's why I'm gonna assume he called me that. I stopped, thinking maybe he was talking to me, but I just carried on ignoring him until this little jerk literally stops me by pulling me towards him, causing me to drop all my games. Me. Hey, what the heck, man? What's your deal? Entitled jerk.
Don't talk to a customer like that, you little jerk.
He literally gets in my face, and I can smell the alcohol in his breath.
Where is the DVD of
a name I can't remember? Me. I don't know, because I don't work here. Now get off. I literally pushed him off me forcefully. As I mentioned, I'm 16, but the issue is I look much older, so he decided to literally swing at me with his fist and knock me right in the face, giving me a nosebleed. Then the employees came to see the commotion, and the drunk jerk tried punching me again. But one of the employees, who was ripped, managed to get him to the ground and hold him there until the police arrived. I was alright. The police asked me if I wanted to press charges, and I said yes, obviously. And the employees told me I could take the games half price, because they were old games. So originally altogether, 116 pounds, and after the 50%, it added up to 58 pounds. It was worth it in the end. Speaking of Sonic, who do you like more, Sonic or Mario? Please let us know.
Whoever gets the most comments wins.
Why does the Birdhouse cost more than the treat? So a while ago, I was working in a big chain store for pet supplies. A part of our stock was seasonal products, many of them for wild birds. I was working the register on an average day, engaging the occasional conversation with the customers, when an old lady comes to the register. I ring her up and tell her the total, and she pays with nothing out of order happening. She leaves, but comes back about 2 minutes later. I ask her if there was a problem, thinking maybe I had accidentally rung something twice or given her the wrong change, despite always being very careful. In the following exchange, we've got lady and we've got manager. Me. Is there something else that you need? Lady.
Well, you have typed in the wrong price.
Me. Wrong price? Our prices are in the system, but I'll have a look.
See? The Birdhouse is $19.99.
Me. Yes, that's the right price. The lady's features darkened instantly.
No, you typed it wrong. The price tag says it's 99 cents.
Me. Oh, I don't think that's right. Can you show me the tag?
Are you saying I am a liar? This is a scam. You are trying to rob me.
Me. No, not at all. But maybe you looked at the wrong tag. A Birdhouse can't be 99 cents. Can you please show me where you got it?
This is fraud. You can't do this to me.
Please calm down. I will look at the tag. Manager. Hello, is there a problem?
This boy is trying to rob me.
Me. The lady says the price tag is for 99 cents. I asked her to show it to me. Manager gives a confused look. All right, let's have a look then. The lady now finally shows us where she got the item. It was a big basket with several items displayed next to each other and the price tags for each one in the front.
See? It says 99 cents.
Pointing to the small treats right next to a bunch of similar birdhouses. Me. No, this is for the treats. I'm sorry for the confusion, ma'am, but it's clearly labeled. The tags had the product names on them.
No, it was not laying with these. It was on top of these snacks. So this tag is the valid one.
Manager. Well, some customer may have put it down there because it's easier than to fit it back in. But this is clearly not the correct tag. A birdhouse cannot…
I want my money back. I will call the police right now.
Manager. Of course we can take the house back, but we can't sell it for 99 cents. She went on screaming, and the manager gestured me to go back inside. A few moments later, they went inside, and the lady smugly held out the item. I did the return, gave her back her money, and suppressed the urge to roll my eyes.
That will teach you, and I will never come to this store again,
she said in a victorious tone. I couldn't help but grin widely at that. Me. Oh, I see. Have a great rest of your life then. She huffed and puffed, and the manager and I shared a good laugh afterwards. I'm looking for your dad, not some punk kid like you. About 21 years ago, I co-owned and operated a small IT business with my then girlfriend. We operated out of our residence. We mostly did mobile tech support, though we had an attached office just for the business where new clients could visit. My girlfriend/business partner did most of the mobile work where I stayed at the office, with the exception of a few particular clients whom had taken a liking to me. On a particular hot summer day, this was in a southern state, so it was both hot and really muggy. A woman came in carrying a MacBook. She looked down at the seated me.
Go get your dad and hurry it up.
I was very tempted to roll my eyes and sigh out loud. I got this kind of reaction more than I could count, unfortunately. I have a baby face. Even now in my mid-40s, I've been busted by truancy officers 3 times in the last 4 years and must maintain a full beard to be taken seriously. Beard is about half gray these days, so it helps more than you might think. I can't help you, ma'am. We do not work on Macintosh systems at all, I informed her.
I'm looking for your dad, not some punk kid like you. Now go get him.
Madam, I had had enough by this point and growled my words. I don't think you understand. I am the owner of this business. We do not work on Apple computers, and
I'm not listening.
She had crossed her arms and even stomped a foot. Listen here, lady. If you don't leave, I will trespass you and call the sheriffs over to remove you. She refused to budge, going so far as to sit at the other desk, my partner's desk.
No, I'm not listening to some snot-nosed kid.
I'm 24, you jerk, I shouted. She rolled her eyes, and by this point, I had finished dialing the non-emergency police number. An hour later, having thankfully endured the silent treatment while we waited, 2 deputies arrived and escorted her outside, giving her 2 options: leave in her own vehicle or leave in the back of their cruiser. Thankfully, she chose the former. The deputies were still there when my business partner got back home, and she found it entirely hilarious. At the time, I just glared at her for laughing, as I didn't think it was funny then. Karen mother insults the way I raise my own kids. I, 23, female, have 2 kids, a daughter who's 5 and a son who's 3. My style of parenting is not the most popular. One main thing of mine is I do not punish my kids. I ignore bad behavior and I reward good behavior. Or if they're doing something wrong, I simply redirect them. It works amazing for me and my kids, and they're both very well adjusted and behaved. Something else I do is give them full control over their own bodies. They decide how they want their hair and what clothes they wear. My daughter has a shaved head, and she's honestly rocking it. My parents, specifically my mother, hate this. My sister had a wedding and asked them to wear formal clothes. My daughter wore a suit, and my son wore a dress, which upset pretty much everyone. My sister was thankfully okay with it, and said while she'd have appreciated my daughter in a dress to be a bridesmaid, she understood it was her decision to make, not ours. She didn't mind my son because he was flower boy, and she said him wearing a dress fit the aesthetic better, so a win all round. Anyway, my mother is getting increasingly upset. She gets upset when she wants a hug and they say no, and I don't force them to hug her. She continues to buy my daughter feminine clothes that get promptly donated to charity and insists on buying my son boys' toys, which he never uses. This has become a huge problem. She's upset because she thinks my kids don't like her, and I explained they'd like her more if she just left them alone. They can talk, they have opinions, ask them how they're feeling and work with that. Recently, this has progressed into her calling me a neglectful mother. Apparently, they'll never learn boundaries, which makes me laugh because she's the one who doesn't understand boundaries, but I digress. Apparently, they'll never grow up and will be bullied in school and become snowflakes. She also claims they'll become badly behaved once they grow up. I think she's being a jerk for trying to change the way that I parent, and she thinks I'm driving a force between my kids and her. Am I the jerk? Edit. Since I've posted this, I've gotten many comments. I apologize for not being able to reply to them all. Every comment I've received can be placed into these categories. Someone who was neglected, praising me and saying I'm what they wished they had, / asking me to adopt them, which honestly warms my heart. You all deserved so much better, and I would adopt you if I could. Someone asking for parenting advice, which I'm more than happy to help out with. My number 1 tip is just go with your gut. Be the parent you wished you had. Mistakes are okay. Apologize and move on. And finally, people who are telling me I'm creating monsters and I should burn for all of eternity, which is valid, I guess. My parenting works for me. If it needs adjusting for them in the future, then I will adjust it. But my children are good kids. They aren't evil. They understand boundaries and behave more than your average kid. So I'm really not worried about them in the real world. They'll be fine. And of course, I've had the odd bits of advice, which I also really appreciate. I've been informed the way I discipline my kids isn't ignoring them. It's just a lesser-known way. Negative punishment, positive rewards. I explained their bad behavior to my kids and why it wasn't good. And it's worked perfectly so far. If it needs adjusting in the future, I will do so. And I've had quite a few professionals tell me this is the preferred method of discipline, so I'm sticking with it for now. As for the wedding incident, I discussed everything with my sister, and we bought my daughter's suit/son's dress 2 months before the wedding. At first, she didn't like that my daughter wouldn't be wearing a dress, but I explained some personal things to her that I will not be putting on the internet, and we came to an agreement. She still was a little upset, but said she'd rather have my daughter in the bridesmaid photos in a suit than not in them at all. By the time the wedding actually happened, she seemed very happy with it and wasn't as upset as beforehand. I think she just needed time to adjust, and she asked my son to be in a dress. I was going to put him in a suit because tiny suits are adorable, but she specifically asked, and he was very happy to wear a princess dress. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or his grandma? Please let us know.
I can't wait to read what our listeners have to say about this one.
Cut my salary in half? Kiss your business goodbye. The cast. Names changed for anonymity. Me, your storyteller at the moment. Chad, hiring CTO. Richard, CEO, brother of Chad. Big Bro, engineer coworker. And Eddie, IT and desktop support guy. This takes place near the very beginning of my software engineering career, back in 05 or 06. I'd just been let go from my previous place of employment due to being compliant with directives I'd been given, although not maliciously, so that story wouldn't be appropriate here, sadly, and thus working myself out of a job. I was a young college dropout from a technical college that hadn't been federally accredited yet, and thus all my student loans were from banks and loan companies instead of from Uncle Sam, and debts were due. I was also making payments on my very first car, even though it was a beater that the prior owners had already nearly driven into the ground, 4 years old and nearly 200,000 miles on it when I bought it, and of course, rent and utilities. The job I had just been let go from already had me working paycheck to paycheck as they paid far under average rate, but I was still new professional, so I couldn't be very choosy. I was living in Los Angeles County, so the cost of living was so bad, I was having to choose which bills were going to be late on a monthly basis. Specifically, I was living in a town called San Pedro, a small town tucked fairly out of the way. After blasting my resume to all the job boards, I get a call from a startup who seems interested in my resume and wants me to come in for a face-to-face interview, skipping the call screen entirely. In my desperation, I agree. I'm given an address, which is all the way up in Woodland Hills. I check the internet. 55-minute drive, so long as there's no traffic. With traffic, it looks like the commute will be more like an hour and 45 minutes each way. I'm desperate though, and literally nobody else has reached out to me about my resume or responded to my applications, so I go to the interview. I arrive to a mostly empty office complex, maybe 6 or 7 other cars in a parking lot capable of holding at least 50. I go into the building mentioned and the address and call the phone number I was given to let them know I've arrived. Enter Chad. Chad comes to meet me and seems excited that I've come. He escorts me through the building to an office. Mind you, as far as I can see, we're the only 2 humans in the building. He gives me the pitch for the company, tells me he built the software being sold, but it's not scalable and he needs someone who can rewrite it. After we go through the whole interview song and dance, he offers me the job on the spot. The pay is marginally higher than the last gig, so I figure gas would be covered for the commute. I agree, and we shake hands as I'm going to be starting the next Monday. Red flags start appearing from the very first minute I arrive on Monday. First, I'm given a tour, which consists of the 14 by 14 foot office I'm going to be sharing with Chad, as well as another engineer who's going to be starting the following Monday. I'm not a fan of having someone able to look over my shoulder. It makes me nervous. I ask why each engineer's desk has 2 computers. Because the one you will be writing code on doesn't have internet access for security purposes. Note, this was pure paranoia. There was nothing about this software that required such tight security. We weren't doing any government contracts or anything of the sort. Then I'm escorted clear across the building to meet with the CEO, Richard, and the IT guy, Eddie, and the sales support team. I'm told that half of the team is supporting the existing version of the application, 2 people are selling the existing version to new clients, or trying to, and 1 person is explicitly tasked with selling the new version, the one I haven't even started on yet. I'm still young and dumb at this point, but even I know this means the salesperson is probably giving out a date when the customers should expect their purchase to be filled. It's a good thing you started when you did. We've been telling customers it'll be ready in June. Did I mention all this was happening in February? Apparently, I've agreed to rewrite, test, and package an entire application I've never seen before in approximately 4 months. So, tour being done, I sit down and get to work. After jumping through a bunch of hoops of getting the software I prefer downloaded onto the actual work machine, as well as the code, I set about reviewing code so horrific I've not seen its like since, and there isn't a single comment in the entire thing. Before I can ask a single question of the CTO, however, he tells me he's headed to downtown LA to scalp his tickets to the Lakers game, and that he'll see me tomorrow. So, now I'm alone in the office with this abomination, a machine that's been hamstrung to heck and back, and the only thing I've got to console me is the fact that at least I'm employed again. Fast forward a week, I've documented the bulk of the code because there wasn't any, and the boss and I do not get along. He's mad because I've not written any substantial code, and I'm frustrated because I'm trying to understand a lot of what specific code is trying to do, and he's routinely leaving around noon to go sell his tickets for Lakers games, or just not in the office because he's chatting with someone else. When he is in the office, I show him my documentation and try to get him to verify it or describe the purpose of code, where all I can say is, what? By the end of the week, I've covered about 30% of the project in a wiki-like document, and I've taken to leaving after sunset so I can A. get more done, B. have a shorter commute, and C. drive when my car isn't an oven. The AC didn't work. I've barely managed to convince the CTO that what I'm doing is necessary, so the engineer starting the next Monday doesn't have to do anywhere near the same crap I've got, which would make us a more efficient team. Monday arrives and in comes Big Bro. I call him this because he was a much more experienced engineer than I was. We spend the first day with him getting set up, then us reviewing what I've documented. He manages to answer some questions the CTO never did, just because he is that much better, and I start to feel more confident. Over the next weeks, Big Bro took me under his wing as an engineer, teaching me best practices, standards, and where my plans were good and where they could be better. If it hadn't been for him, I'd have gone insane. I end up joining him outside for smoke breaks, even though I don't smoke, just so I can get a breath of non-office air. He and I discuss the project, and we also make friends with Eddie, who makes us laugh by telling us horror stories about the CTO and CEO. Apparently, he was a school friend of theirs and basically worked with them because they paid him to do something he felt was super easy. April rolls around. I've got a special occasion I need the day off for, which happens to be a Wednesday that year. I'd advised him when I first started, and he had been cool with it. I remind him on April 2nd, since I had an irrational fear of policy decisions being made on April Fool's Day, and he loses it. He goes off on a rant and straight up informs me that he regrets hiring me, claiming I didn't have the skills I told him I did and wasn't worth what I was being paid. We're definitely not halfway done, more like 1/3, and it's already been decided that June is a lost cause and that we're shooting for August now. That habit I started before of leaving after the sun went down? Yeah, that never stopped. I was arriving at 9 a.m. every day and leaving around 10 p.m. every night, trying my best. Big Bro was the same, and Eddie would stay late with us just because we liked hanging out together. So it should be understandable that I was very close to losing it right back at him. In a strained, yet diplomatic voice, I told him that if he put in the same amount of work to help us as we put in to rewrite his code, we'd probably be a lot closer to done than we are, especially given the 12-hour days. He was not a fan of that and switched to straight up yelling, blaming us for the lost sales and refunds due to the delays, and that the only way he'd get off of our backs was by getting the project done. This entire time, Big Bro is just sitting there and says nothing to back me up. Chad then left the office for a bit, and I just declared I was taking my lunch and would be back in an hour. I felt frustrated by Chad and betrayed by Big Bro, who I felt, rightly or not, should have had my back since we were in the same boat. When we were both back in the office, he apologized for yelling and told me that since he agreed when I was hired I could have my day off. Cool, I apologized too, although not for anything specific. I just didn't want to talk to him anymore and figured that was the fastest way to end the conversation. Fast forward to June and the opportunity for malicious compliance. Over the last 2 months, Chad has been getting worse and worse. He's yelling nearly every day and still leaving early too. Big Bro and Eddie are also feeling the pain. Nobody is safe from his ego. The smoke breaks in afternoon/evening portion of our day are when we're most productive, as nobody can focus until Chad leaves. The first Monday in June rolls around and Chad invites me to go on a walk outside for a one-on-one meeting. I figured I'm being fired. At this point, we've had to refactor the rewrite almost entirely due to missing a critical chunk of functionality, and we're still only 60% done. August release is looking less and less sure. Chad informs me that he's hired a third engineer, but in order to stay in the budget to pay me, he's cutting my salary in half. I stop on the spot and just give him a blank look. "Are you serious?" I ask. "I'm barely able to pay for my bills and the gas required to commute here as it is. If you cut my salary at all, I won't be able to afford to live." At this point, the idea of cutting my productivity to help ramp up a new engineer so he can help us meet the deadlines doesn't even occur to me. Although in hindsight, that would also have been a pretty major issue. Chad brushes me off. "That's not my problem. The fact that you missed one deadline and look like you're gonna miss another is. If you've got a problem with that, you're more than welcome to go find another job. The new guy starts in 2 weeks." And with that, he walked inside. I'd just been told that I had 2 weeks left of job at my current salary. Cool. So that day I do something I hadn't done since I first started. I left while the sun was still up. Specifically, I left at 5 p.m. I drive my oven car. No working air conditioning in a car that had been left in the sun all day in Woodland Hills had me feeling like a baked potato. Through traffic, hour-and-a-half commute home through LA heat, and updated my resume before reactivating my accounts on all the job sites. I'm contacted the next day by a potential new employer and I get an interview scheduled. I decide to tell Big Bro about the new opportunity and he hits me with news that lets me know just how small a world we live in. Me: "Hey, Big Bro, just for your information, I've started looking for a new job. I've already got an interview lined up." Big Bro: "Really? Where?" Me: "Over at this company." Big Bro: "Wow, that's where I worked before I came here. That place is pretty awesome and I left there on pretty good terms. I know the CTO there. Go ahead and use me as a reference." Me, skeptical: "Really? Okay." Turns out Big Bro was true to his word, and the CTO and I even talked about Big Bro during the interview. Apparently, they had already talked about me, and Big Bro had been the ultimate hype man, confirming everything I said was why I was looking for a new job and everything. All goes well, and I'm electronically signing an offer letter that Friday afternoon. Chad had already left for the day, so there was nobody to look over my shoulder as I used the work computer that had internet access to get this done. At the new job, the commute is cut by more than half and comes with a pretty significant raise. I tell Big Bro and Eddie on the last smoke break, I still don't smoke, that I'm done and I found something new. Oddly enough, they both smile and just wish me luck. No hard feelings. Hope we can stay in touch. Odd, but I'd stopped really caring about anything related to that job, so I paid it no mind. I went back inside, packed up my stuff into my backpack, and walked to the CEO's office. Me: "Hey, Richard, got a minute?" Richard: "Hey, OP, what's up?" Me: "Just wanted to let you know I found a new job, so I'm moving on." Richard: "Really? Why? We need you." Me: "You guys decided it was cool to cut my salary to a point where I couldn't afford to live. Chad said if I didn't like it, I should look for something new, so I did." Richard, looking defeated: "Well, when's your last day?" Me: "Today." Richard, now upset: "We need you here to train the new guy who starts soon." Hey, I had to train myself, and to an extent, Big Bro when he first started. The new guy should be able to as well. And with that, I left for greener pastures. The unexpectedly huge fallout. 4 months later, Big Bro texts me to ask how things are going. I tell him things are great, and we schedule a lunchtime call because apparently things have gone sideways in a huge way. Part 1. Apparently, Chad came in on Monday, almost violently angry, and demands Eddie re-image my work machine first thing in the morning, which erases everything I'd left on there. Big Bro comes in an hour late, and he and Chad discuss the new timeline for the project. Somewhere in there, apparently, Big Bro asks Chad to log into the admin account on my old work machine so he can pull the documents I had accumulated about the planned architecture, the existing code, meeting notes, etc. Chad answers by apparently punching a hole in the wall and leaving for the day, probably to go to the hospital to deal with his hand, at 10:30 in the morning. Big Bro then spends the rest of that week ostensibly working on recreating the documentation from scratch. Part 2. When I asked how the new guy handled the new documentation, Big Bro laughed and told me there never was any documentation. Apparently, he and Eddie had become really good friends in the months we worked there, to the point where they had become roommates about a month before I left. More than that though, they had decided to start a freelance/consulting business together and only had to decide on when to make that their full-time jobs. Neither of them liked Chad much and wanted to make their departure heard as much as possible. So they decide to make Big Bro's last day the day before the new guy starts, and Eddie would quit shortly afterward, sticking around just long enough to watch the bomb go off. Did I mention Big Bro never told Chad he was quitting? Yeah, he just didn't show up that Monday. He had, however, emailed that documentation he had spent a week writing to Chad. Turns out he wasn't documenting the code at all. He had spent a week writing a letter explaining in excruciating detail why Chad was such a bad boss, and he had emailed it to everyone in the company. I asked if he still had it so I could read it, and he sent it to me after the call. Thankfully, like the big helper he was, Eddie had ensured that the new guy's email was set up and in the proper groups before the email was sent. So the guy's first email in the company was a novella about the kind of person he had agreed to work for. Apparently, Chad thought it was appropriate to take his frustration out on the new guy, who'd already read a significant portion of the email before Chad shoved him away from his desk and deleted it. Apparently, new guy promptly decided, and rightfully so, that agreeing to work for Chad had been a mistake, packed up his things, and quit on the spot. Part 3. With the new guy quitting, the August deadline was now little more than a dream within a dream, which, according to Eddie, doesn't stop Chad and Richard from trying to find that Marital rockstar engineer who can save them from their own situation, which, given what they were offering as pay, didn't exist. So time advances in its unstoppable way. August arrives, and customers find that they've paid for something that hasn't been delivered yet, and pretty much unanimously demand refunds, with a few customers bringing legal action against them. With the amount they have to refund and the money they now need for legal fees, because of the way they had incorporated, they were personally liable. They could no longer afford to pay anyone and were forced to shut their business. Have you ever had a boss demand impossible tasks from you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I'd probably just quit. Then again, I've never had a job.
Make me do all of the science project? I'll throw you under the bus. Cast. We've got Pathological Liar, we've got Sheep Boy, we've got Amazing Teacher, and me as starting to salve. So this story happened when I was in 7th grade. During that time, the school district had all students participate in a mandatory annual science fair from elementary school up to the end of middle school. The idea was to get students interested in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math fields and occupations. After participating in science fairs for 6 years, I was used to the usual rigmarole that a science fair project entailed. I come up with some, hopefully unique, project ideas, most likely the very original electricity from a potato project. I make a hypothesis, collect data, pay the school or Home Depot $10 to $20 for a science fair board, tape up charts and diagrams to the board the night before presenting, and then rinse and repeat for the next year. However, this year my class was doing things a little differently. My class had the honor of being the first to be selected to participate in a virtual science fair. So basically, we were voluntold. No one in our section of the district at the time did a virtual science fair before, so we were signed up as guinea pigs to test it out. If that wasn't good enough, my class also had to promote healthy collaboration among students, so we were assigned to do projects in a group. Now, I hate group work. I always got the short end of the stick in a group. Either my group gets stuck with someone that skimps out on work and the other group members and I have to cover their portion, or everyone in the group except me avoids work like the plague, and no matter how much I urge them to participate, I eventually have to do all the work myself to maintain my precious grade. I was a straight A student at the time, so any group work assigned to me was a threat to my grade and my sanity. If I ever got less than an A on any assignment, my mother would ask me, "Why didn't you get an A? Sonny boy, do you need help at school?" It drove me insane since I wasn't failing. Anyways, the online science fair was pretty simple. As a group, we were assigned access to a group science fair board that we could fill out with our results, figures, hypotheses, etc. We were to have certain parts of the project, like the discussion, done by particular dates to get points towards our grade. The overall project was due in 2 months, and then we were to give a presentation. Amazing Teacher was brilliant. She wanted us to record our project progress in a composition book in tandem with the online portion, which she would review during our presentation in 2 months. I believe this was to help us keep track of notes in case we forgot to log them into the computer later, but it was used by me as a tool in my revenge. I was paired with Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy, who I was kind of friends with. We brainstormed and settled on testing the performance of an individual in exercise before and after they drink an energy drink. This was in part influenced by Monster Energy Drink just becoming popular and Sheep Boy's parents getting a new home gym. I thought it was great since I was playing football at the time and wanted to work out more. Also, Pathological Liar, Sheep Boy, and I literally shared every class together and lived within a mile of each other, so it would be super easy to communicate. However, Sheep Boy and Pathological Liar never seemed to want to talk about the project. After 2 weeks of radio silence from Liar and Sheep Boy, I finally corralled them in one place and suggested we meet up at Sheep Boy's house that weekend to start the project. On the day of the meetup, Sheep Boy's mom had to go grocery shopping or something, so Sheep Boy was out. Undaunted, I told Pathological Liar it would be fine if we work at my house and researched other studies on it to get the ball rolling. But Liar never showed up that day, so I decided to confront him on our walk home from school the next day. Oh my God, if you heard what came out of this boy's mouth as an excuse. While we were literally within spitting distance of my house, Liar said he couldn't come over yesterday or today because his grandparents had got into a plane crash. I was flabbergasted and exclaimed, "What? Really? But I didn't see anything on the news about a plane crash." Pathological Liar responded indignantly.
Plane crashes happen all the time, starting to salve. They're not all going to get reported on. Their plane struck another plane on the tarmac and then rolled over and snapped off both wings.
Me, insert surprised Pikachu face. OMG, I'm so sorry. Did they get hurt? Liar.
What? No, why would they, idiot? Anyways, I can't do the project this week. See ya.
This little jerk then ran home. After I got home and deduced that he had just fed me a sack of lies, I just said whatever and filled out the preliminary sections of the project and wrote notes in the composition book to at least ensure we had something to turn in next week. I was willing to give the group a second chance, cause maybe their busy middle school lives were swamped. After another 2 weeks of attempting to coordinate my group and getting them to at least contribute a page or two to the report, we finally decided to meet up at Sheep Boy's house again to start collecting the data. We actually all showed up this time, and Sheep Boy's mom had bought the Monster energy drinks we needed. Pathological Liar started to guzzle them because he wanted to test out the drinks first. Sheep Boy showed off his new home gym and then got us to play Smash Brothers for half an hour. I didn't want to play at first, but then decided to lighten up and we could do the tests afterward. After coaxing my group back to the gym, Pathological Liar just rambled and chit-chatted. Me, trying to be pragmatic, said, "Hey guys, why don't we start our exercise now and record some data? And then afterward I can school y'all in Smash Brothers." Sheep Boy looked willing until Liar sighed out.
Oh my God, starting to salve. We didn't invite you out to do this stupid project. We invited you to hang out.
Sheep Boy's attitude did a complete 180, chiming in, "Yeah, we don't want to do the stupid project now." I was seething. Pathological Liar spouted a load of bull. This wasn't even his house. I was the one who organized this get-together to collect science data for the fair. I was the one herding these sheeple around. OMG. The second chance I gave them was taken and then stomped all over the ground, and they weren't getting a third one. I relented and said, "Okay then, let's just hang out then." When I got home that night, I was angry, and I used that anger to fuel my revenge. I conscripted my parents to the science fair project, and they helped me collect the data I needed by volunteering to work out and drink energy drinks. The data collection problem was solved. Once I got enough data, I wrote down everything for the science fair project in the composition book. I even uploaded everything to the online science fair board. I created all the PowerPoint slides and scripts for the presentation. Over the next few weeks leading up to the presentation, Sheep Boy and Liar didn't even ask about the science fair project. They had no intention of doing any of the work. Although my anger fueled me to get the project done, I wasn't finished. I did the pettiest thing I could think of and signed a corner of the composition book with, "Starting to Salve did all the work." I knew that Amazing Teacher would be checking our composition books while we were presenting the project, and I couldn't wait to see how Liar would try to weasel his way out of this one. On the day of the presentation, Liar and Sheep Boy were nervously fidgeting at their desks because they didn't have anything prepared. I strolled in and told them to relax since I made a PowerPoint. They relaxed, not knowing how stupid they were going to look while presenting. Oh, how dumb they looked when we started presenting to the whole class. I had already memorized the slides and my script and was effortlessly strolling around the room, making eye contact and delivering a great speech on the science fair project. Liar and Sheep Boy just read off the slides with deadpan expressions with their hands in their pants and not moving an inch. I was relishing this, all the while gleefully peeking at the back of the classroom where Amazing Teacher was reading through our composition book. Amazing Teacher would stop our presentation every once in a while to ask questions and compare with what was written down in the book. But once the bomb dropped, my blood ran cool with maniacal glee. I saw Awesome Teacher stop and read a corner of the book. She then read it out loud. "Starting to Salve did all of the work?" I felt Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy grow cold next to me. Pathological Liar, that cunning fox, stammered out.
Well, yeah, he worked on that section, miss.
Amazing Teacher brought her glasses down to the tip of her nose and stared at Pathological Liar over the rims and coolly stated, "So you're telling me that Starting to Salve was just signing his part of the composition book and that you all wrote in here equally?" Liar.
Yes, ma'am.
Me shrugs. At this point, I wavered. I didn't want to feel the social wrath from them or their friends for stepping out and challenging Pathological Liar's lie, so I stayed silent. At least I embarrassed them for a moment. After my crowning achievement of embarrassing Liar and Sheep Boy, I thought nothing would really come from it, but boy was I wrong. After grades were released for the project, I was totally bummed out that I got a 96. It wasn't the perfect A that I was hoping for, and I knew my mother would be asking me, "Why didn't you get an A+? Why didn't you get a 100? But then Sheep Boy and Pathological Liar ran up to me with their eyes wide with terror asking, "What did you get for your grade?" Me, I got a grade. Why? This is how I snarkily avoided answering questions on my grade. Liar, Sheep Boy got a 66 and I got a 48. I was shocked to hear that, and then I figured out that Amazing Teacher must have interrogated my group mates on the project separately and awarded them the grades they deserved. OMG, my petty revenge tanked their grades. The science fair project alone was 25% of our total grade that year. I was so grateful that Amazing Teacher saw my frustration and punished them. Did you like group projects in school or not? Please let us know. I could never stand them, to be honest. Just married? Mother shall come stay. Mother Dearest is insane. It was a bit of a ride when I got married. Husband is British, I'm Australian, and we live in England. Hence, all my loving and crazy family came from Oz for the big day. I'm one of 4 kids, and my family are breeders, whereas husband's family is small and significantly less crazy. They all came in dribs and drabs for our December wedding, leaving the warm tropical Aussie climate for -3 Celsius and December snow. Key information is that my mom buzzed off when I was 3 because she was tired of being a mom, so I was raised by the barrel-chested, swearing, but adorable pirate that is my father. Mother has the emotional maturity of a toddler and genuinely believes the world and her children adore her. We do not. Back to the wedding and the BS she pulled. We had organized events for the Australian contingent for the 2 weeks before the wedding, but not much for after, as we were going to be newly married. I don't think I need to expand, because most people understand that newlyweds generally want to spend time together. She arrived 3 weeks before the wedding and is annoyed that she is staying, for free, at my husband's parents' house, where my brother and his wife and daughter were also staying. She wanted to stay at my house, like my sister, who was my maid of honor. This was obviously ignored as she stresses me out, so she sat in the garden of my in-laws' house and pouted like a child until we left, then made passive-aggressive posts on Facebook about being ignored and unloved after traveling so far, which I pettily laughed at because not a single person commented. Wedding day arrived. I wrote on an old account about her actions on the day before and day of our wedding. Namely, she tried to get back with my dad, who is definitely not interested, and then wore pajamas to our wedding reception. But it is what happened after that just irks me. She'd been staying with my in-laws for 3 weeks. She knew husband and I were going on our honeymoon the weekend after the wedding. She then asked the day after we were married for the keys to our house, as she was going to house sit while we were away. You what now? No, you are not accessing my house when I am not there. She then cries about how she booked to come to England for 8 weeks because otherwise the cost of the tickets wasn't worth it. Again, what? All my other family had left the week after the wedding, except my brother and his wife, who instead traveled to London to see friends, but they were still not coming back to see me. I point blank told her that she wasn't coming to my house while I wasn't there. Did I mention I got married in December? So Christmas is around the corner. She plays the family card about how she has never spent a Christmas with me and she will stay in a hotel, but just wants to be with me on the day. I okay this. This is acceptable. Well done on doing a reasonable and rational thing, mother. But I did point out to her that the reason we didn't spend Christmas together was because she chose to buzz off on a yacht, so it's on her. You know what wasn't acceptable? The day we got back from our honeymoon, she rocked up at the house and didn't leave for 2 weeks. Just what every husband wants on their return from their honeymoon.
The world's most entitled and awful mother-in-law crashing their house and leaving fertility candles all over the joint while saying we are jerks because we won't talk about our private lives with her. She joined us at my in-laws' house for Christmas. It started fine until on Christmas Eve I got a major case of stomach flu and started throwing up every 20 minutes. The first time I was sick, my mother-in-law rushed to the bathroom with water, a cool compress for my head, and made sure I was okay. My own mother didn't get up from the sofa. I spent Christmas Day in bed, in agony with horrible cramps and regularly throwing up. My mother-in-law and husband took it in turns to check on me and keep me company. My mother only came to see me once, after Christmas dinner, to complain that my mother-in-law gave my husband the Yorkshire pudding that had been made for me, when she, as the real guest, should have been offered it. If I'd been able to throw up on her, I would have, but sadly I was just painfully retching at that point. I feel for my husband, I truly do. The poor man hid in our bedroom for 2 weeks, only venturing out when I told him the coast was clear. No stars, do not recommend. Have you ever had someone stay at your house who you just couldn't stand? If so, what was wrong with them? Please let us know. Yeah, you Reddit boy.
You want your money back on an item that's selling for 10 times what you paid for it? Sounds good. I run an anime/geek store, and we are really lenient with pre-orders. We used to not require a deposit to make an order, and in case you needed more time to pick up an item, all you had to do was ask. We could also hold the items for as long as needed in our storage if you wanted to gather a lot of items so you could save on trips and shipping. Back in February, Funko released a special edition vinyl pop of Naruto Hokage. This one in particular had a 1 in 6 chase variant that ended reaching up to a resale value of $130. But the way I do pre-orders is that if you order 6 of the same price, you are guaranteed a chase. But if you only order 1, you still get a 1 in 6 chance of getting the chase. I just mix them up in random boxes and do a public stream raffle on social media so everyone knows who won the chase, and I get good publicity that way. A client ordered just 1 and left $5 as a deposit. The piece was $15. This particular client won the raffle, along several other clients, but he wasn't that interested in picking it up or paying for the rest of it. I sent him a message letting him know that he won the special variant and had a week to pay for it or he will lose his pre-order. At first, he was angry because he wanted the normal version, not this yellow thing, but we explained he could change it if he wanted, but that this one was far more valuable. He said he asked his son, and his son wanted it anyway, but asked for more time to pay, so we gave him 1 more week. Then he asked for another week and another. Then we had to close the store for a time for, 2020 reasons, and we told him we had to close, but we could still schedule an appointment to give him his item or wait until the worst passed. He never answered. Eventually, we were able to reopen the store with regulations in place and send him another message telling him we can save it for as long as needed in these strange times. He still didn't answer the messages, but at this point, he arrived at the store and demanded for his money back, citing how we were in the middle of what was going on. Fair. And he couldn't waste money on frivolous plastic. Also fair. I asked him if he was sure and even showed him the price the figure was selling for. At that point in time, the chase figure was selling closer to $150, and he just had to pay retail price for it, so about $10 more for it. He said he was sure I had made up the numbers, that he had ordered the figure for his son, but he didn't deserve it. Harsh. And just demanded his money back. I just said, fine, I'll give you your money back. Also, I'll just put this figure out for sale. He just said, whatever, just give me my money. I made a point to grab a post-it note that I used to put prices to not damage the box. Write in big black letters, $90, last one, and put it on the glass window that leads to the street. I could see him turn his eyes while I did this. While my employee was giving him his $5 back and giving him a receipt, a young man knocked on the door. I gave him some cleaning goo, checked his temperature, and let him in. He immediately asked to buy the Naruto chase figure. The angry man's eyes went wide open over his mask as I picked the pop and guided the young man to the desk, where he handed me the bills one by one. The angry man stood there, shocked as the younger man was gushing about how hard it was to get that figure and how he was getting it for half the price the other places were asking, and in such perfect condition too. I couldn't have had a better reaction even if I paid him for it. The young man completed his purchase and left as fast as he came. The angry man looked at me, almost as if accusing me of taking advantage of him. I just said, Well, you got your money back. I'm happy you are happy. If you need anything else, please let me know and stay safe out there. The man just didn't have much else to say and left. Kind of a small and silly thing to feel good about, but 2020 hit us so hard that any unexpected profit was cause for celebration. So we celebrated that good sale with some instant ramen, Naruto style. Edit. Thanks for all the kind words. My store is in Mexico, and I really appreciate everyone asking me how to support it. I didn't mean to self-promote, and I'm not 100% sure if it's against the rules, so I won't. And also, I can't ship to the US right now due to the situation. I'm not American, so I can't cross the border since I'm not essential. Also, I'm trying to go out as little as possible. I want to answer all of you directly, but I just can't. Speaking of Funko Pops, do you have any Funko Pops? If so, which ones? Please let us know.
I want a Mr. Reddit Funko Pop so that I can burn it.
Am I the jerk for refusing to just skip a day of my commitment to 20,000 steps a day just to prove something to my sister-in-law? 5 years ago, I made a commitment to get at least 20,000 steps every day, and I've stuck to it every day. It hasn't been easy, but it's something that really felt important to me. I was overweight and stuck in a very sedentary lifestyle and mindset. Making the commitment forced me to get off my butt, taking long walks, and then picking up running, and overall being mindful of no longer being a lazy person. I've slimmed down and am overall much happier and healthier than I was, physically and especially mentally. Other side effects are that my home is cleaner, I know more of my neighbors, I've seen a lot of great street art, etc. It's not something that really impacts my day beyond making sure I have the time, but for some reason, it really upsets my sister-in-law. I don't make a big deal yelling, "Gotta get my steps in every day. Hey everyone, my steps, getting them," or anything. We were at the park with her kids. She asked me if I was still doing that silly step thing, and I said yeah, I felt pretty good about it. She said that she worries about me and how obsessive I am about it. I told her that I don't think I'm obsessive, that it's just a part of my daily routine, like taking a shower or cleaning up. Well, she got all weird and started saying,
I bet you can't give it up for just one day. Just one day. See? You're addicted. It's an obsession. It's unhealthy.
I told her that I'm not addicted. Again, the same way I'm not addicted to taking a shower or brushing my teeth. It's just a part of my lifestyle now, that I'm not going to give up and break my streak just to prove a point. That would be ridiculous. I suggested maybe she could join me and try it for a few days, and she went off saying that I was calling her overweight. She went around pestering everyone in the family to challenge myself by taking a day off. She switched her tune and is now trying to guilt me by telling me it's setting a bad, unrealistic expectation for my nieces and nephews. I think that's ridiculous, and obviously if I'm doing it, it's not unrealistic. Her biggest complaint is that for the past few holiday meals we've had together, I make a big show of getting up and taking a walk afterwards, like I'm trying to prove something to someone. I told her that it's pretty common and that some families go on runs together in the morning of Thanksgiving or take a hike. She told me that I was effectively shaming everyone because they wanted to relax. I think that's ridiculous, but she insists that it's insulting to everyone and makes me an obsessed jerk. Am I the jerk? I think it's worth adding that my sister-in-law isn't overweight. At least, I don't see her as overweight or anything. Also, I don't have an eating disorder, and I'm not replacing one addiction with another, so please stop projecting that onto me. You people are trying to come up with these insane hypotheticals to try to gotcha me because for some reason, you want me to have an eating disorder. So let me clarify one last time, and I won't be acknowledging any comments insinuating that I need to reflect or whatever. I do not have an eating disorder. I do not have an exercise addiction. So now that we have that out of the way, okay, you guys cannot listen. I'm logging out. Instead of engaging with me in good faith, you're continuing to try to wrangle me into some scenario where you think I have an eating disorder or exercise addiction. I said multiple times that these are not the issues. Now, why would I continue to say that? Because I have a therapist and we have already gone over this. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her sister-in-law? Please let us know.
Her sister-in-law just needs to mind her own business.
But your lunch special used to cost $5. I was reminded of this funny story when I was talking to a friend about people that are ridiculous. Oh, and here's some backstory. I'm Chinese, 13, male, and I sometimes help out my parents at a Chinese restaurant they own. The important part is that they bought the place from a different couple, I think like 10 years ago. Keep that in mind. Also, this is in the summer of 2020, so lockdown is still rampant. Okay, on to the story. It's a normal day and I'm just helping out, taking customers' orders, cleaning, etc. A guy walks to the screen we have set up because of lockdown and orders a lunch special. A lunch special is basically almost any meal with fried rice and either a soda, egg roll, or soup the customer chooses. I don't remember exactly what he ordered, but it's not too important. I ring him up and the total is $8. Now, the lunch special used to be $7.45, but because we weren't getting as much business as before, my parents raised the price to $8. Most people don't mind paying an extra 55 cents. I don't know if anyone else does this, but my parents did. The characters are me and the customer. Me. Okay, that'll be $8. Customer.
Wait, what?
I don't remember exactly what was said. Me. It'll be $8.
Now wait just 1 second. I thought your special was $5.
Me. That might have been from years ago. Maybe the old owners had the price at $5, but it's $8 now.
Well, this is ridiculous. You can't charge me $8. It's $5.
Me. Sir, I'm not sure what to tell you. The menu says it's $8.
Fine. I'll show you a real menu that says it's $5.
At this point, I'm really confused. Me. Okay. Customer huffs and stalks away. I saw him get into his car and drive away, which didn't bother me because maybe it's at home. I tell my mother and she laughs. I wait 10 minutes. Nothing. 15 minutes. Still no sign. After 30 minutes, I guess this guy went home and was mad I didn't charge him $3 less. My parents just thought he was an idiot. There you have it. The time a guy wanted to be a Karen and just made a fool of himself. He didn't even get his food. I have a lot more stories, so let me know if I should share them. Am I the jerk for telling my husband and his family to suck it up when they complained about my daughter's wedding? I won't complicate this. I have a daughter, Kara, who is not my biological daughter, nor was she my legal daughter until she reached the age of 18 when she asked me to adopt her as an adult. I married my husband when she was 14, and together we have 2 kids. Kara gets along okay with my husband, but admittedly, her upbringing means she was maybe not as able to bond with a father figure as she was with a mother figure, and her age was also a factor. Regardless, everyone gets along, and I think that is the best you expect when you have someone who went through as much as she did at a young age. Kara is engaged and came to me recently and told me she would like to walk with me down the aisle and do a dance with me while her fiance dances with his mom. She told me she didn't know how to ask for that without hurting my husband. I told her he would understand and I would be honored to do it. I did not expect my husband and his parents to take offense. They believe she snubbed my husband and is making it seem like he's nothing. After listening to them complain about this for 10 minutes, I told them to suck it up and accept that she asked me, her mom, to do both of these parts of the wedding and that I was proud to do it. I dared them to tell me I was less deserving than my husband. My husband and his parents believe I wasn't very understanding and downright rude, according to my mother-in-law. Am I the jerk? So, to clarify for people because I was not clear, my husband is not her father. He is her stepfather through me. I was married before, and she was my stepdaughter, who I ended up with custody of, but never legally adopted as a minor because her biological mother was alive. I did adopt her when she turned 18. Not my husband, just me. Adding some more to this, had my husband confided in me that his feelings were hurt, that would be one thing, but he did not. He went to his parents, and then all 3 decided to take offense to the fact not only was he not asked, but I was. And while they never came out directly and told me that I should say no, it was implied throughout their complaints, none of which were about his hurt feelings and all about the snub and how unbelievable it was that I would be filling that role in her wedding. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her in-laws? Please let us know.
Maybe those in-laws need to mind their own business. Why can't anyone mind their own business?
Lady attempted to spit on me. A few months ago, around the end of November, beginning of December, a woman walks into the girls' clothing store I worked at. Now, the store I worked at recently closed due to being bought out. A lot of people were mad about that, yelling at the employees and demanding explanation. I wasn't a manager or anything, so I didn't really know much, just what I was told. So all I knew was that any purchases made after November 12th were final sale, no returns or exchanges. The registers are also set up where we have signs saying all sales are final, and we have plexiglass between the cashier and customer. This lady came into the store, and she looked pretty put together and wealthy. She was wearing form-fitting jeans, a sweater, and had nice makeup on. In my area, we require masks or face shields, So she had a face shield on. It comes into play later. She also had 2 girls with her, probably 9 and 5. Both of them were also nicely dressed. She walked around for a bit before finally choosing a set of PJs. She walked up to my register and paid for her things, with me telling her 2 times verbally that all sales were final. We tell them all sales are final before they pay and again when we mark their receipt final sale. She acknowledged me, paid, and went to walk out of the store. On her way out, she stopped and looked at the PJs again. She seemed to find another set she liked, so she walked back up to the register. I took her at my register, assuming she wanted to buy the other set, but she slammed the bag of purchased PJs and the other set on the counter and said,
I want to exchange these.
I looked at her and said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but all sales are final, so I'm unable to do that. She didn't like that answer and started saying,
I didn't even leave the store. I just bought these. Do it.
I explained to her again that I'm unable to do that. We didn't even have the option on the register anymore. She got more and more visibly aggravated with me. She kept demanding that I exchange the items, using so many different excuses like,
I just bought them. They are the same price. I didn't even leave. You didn't even tell me it's final sale,
etc. Keep in mind, there are signs all over the store saying final sale, and I told her 2 times. I kept telling her over and over that I couldn't exchange them, but would be happy to ring it up in a separate purchase for her. She wasn't having it. She eventually slid her face shield up and spit in my direction. It landed on the plexiglass and not on me, but at that point, I wasn't taking it anymore. I'm not sure if she knew the plexiglass was there or not, but either way, I was done. I called my manager over and calmly explained the situation to her before stepping back. Now, my manager is very mama bear type. If someone messes with her employees, she doesn't take it. She took one look at the customer and said, "You have 5 seconds to leave the store or I'm calling security to come in here and drag you out." The customer was taken aback for a bit, but eventually grabbed the PJs she purchased and stormed out. Her daughters just looked scared and embarrassed of their mom the whole time. The store closed shortly after that, so I'm not sure if anything ever came of it. But let's just say, I'm glad I don't work retail anymore. Am I the jerk for not letting my sister use my pool after she and her kids insulted my family? I, 28 female, am a mother of 2 and engaged to my partner of 5 years, 30 male. My kids are 3 and 5 years old, and neither of them are my partner's children. I am 4 months pregnant with a 3rd baby who is his biological kid. There was never any cheating, and everyone involved is aware of all of this. When we started talking about moving in together, we agreed that we would move in with him, and he put me on the deed, meaning we have equal equity in the house despite me paying a fraction of what he did. My siblings and I grew up poor, and I only met my partner and got to the point I'm at because I got a combination of scholarships and grants for his university. All of this has given my siblings a lot to tease me over. I don't mind it most of the time, but there have been times I've had to shut it down. My sister, 36 female, has 2 kids, ages 4 and 6, with her husband. She and her husband were a few hours away, but last year they moved near us. With lockdown, I suggested that she bring her kids over to use our indoor pool. All 4 kids got on well, and my sister and I got to talk, so the arrangement was working. Additionally, the 4-year-old has a knee thing, which means the best thing for him is swimming, so this had considerable health benefits for him. Then, just before Christmas, they came over. I made my partner a drink and brought it to him, and she made a snarky comment about me being his maid. This led to a passive-aggressive conversation about our income and lifestyle, and the visit was cut short. Then she brought her kids over again earlier this month. I don't know what happened exactly, but my kids came up to me, sobbing, saying their cousins called them jerks, and me a gold digger. My sister was with me, and she said her kids were just joking. I asked her where they learned those jokes, and she said they probably figured it out themselves. I said that even if that was the case, which I doubt, they should still apologize to my kids. She responded that they were only teasing, and I said they were being brats and I expect an apology. My sister got them to apologize and left. Considering that this was the visit following the one where my sister and I had that passive-aggressive conversation about my income, I am confident that they did not figure it out themselves, rather that my sister either said it within their earshot or to them directly and they copied her. She's now calling me asking to use the pool. I've said no. I'm fine with my siblings teasing me, as we're all adults, but her kids calling my kids names, joking or not, was unacceptable. She said her kids were only joking. They've apologized, and they really enjoy coming to my house, and it's helping the 4-year-old. I said they shouldn't be praised for apologizing, and after this, I don't think I want to put my kids in that position again. She said that I was being a selfish, privileged jerk by punishing her kids for something they've already apologized for, and accused me of thinking I was better than her and our other siblings. I said that if she respected anything about my life, we would not be having these issues, and she said I was blowing this out of proportion and being a complete jerk by holding this over them and being willing to affect the 4-year-old's health. I'm concerned that I'm in the wrong due to the 4-year-old's health issues and the fact that the kids apologized and this was a first offense, so I feel I should give them some leeway. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her sister? Please let us know.
We all know where her kids heard that from. I wouldn't allow them to my house at all.
Help me find this item. Ma'am, I quit a week ago. This story takes place at the Mart of Walls, blue and yellow sun store. I had just quit my job there a week prior because I had been offered another job elsewhere. I had been planning on handing in my 2-week notice when I quit, but someone was being so unbelievably rude that I quit on the spot, but that's a different story. Either way, the point is I was no longer an employee. I had to get some groceries, and because their prices were pretty good for what I needed, I went in. I'm pretty sure we all know what their employees wear, either a blue or yellow vest. I was wearing a black hoodie and a Guns N' Roses shirt, as well as shredded black jeans and Doc Martens. I looked nothing like an employee. I had my very expensive headphones on and went straight to the aisle with the candy. I had to bend down to tie my boots and grab something from the bottom shelf when someone starts talking behind me. I just kind of keep looking at the shelf when I feel someone grab my hoodie. Unsurprisingly, I stand up and there is a Karen standing behind me.
I've been trying to get your attention for 10 minutes now.
Note, I hadn't been standing there 5 minutes.
I need you to help me grab something from the shelf over there,
Karen said loudly, gesturing to the baby section. I am now grumpy. I don't like to be touched because I am very autistic, and I have PTSD due to a very bad relationship. Worse than that though, she's keeping me from my candy. I look her straight in the eyes. I stare deep into her soul. She becomes visibly uncomfortable. I should mention that I was raised in a military family, and I have zero fear of people like her. I haven't worked here for a week. It's obvious by the clothes I'm wearing that I don't work here. I would strongly recommend that you leave me alone because the next time you touch me, you'll regret it. She very briskly walks to get management. I find what I was looking for and head for the registers. Karen is up talking to the shift manager, who was a friend of mine. She points to me and is obviously lying about what happened. The shift manager is trying so hard not to laugh at this point. Karen turns around in a huff and leaves. As I was walking out, I stopped by the returns desk to say, "Hi." He gave me the biggest smile and just said, "Live the dream, dude." Not the most dramatic, but yeah. Am I the jerk for leaving my sister at home when it was time to go to school? This happened a few months ago, but it's still a point of argument today. I, 16, female, have a 14-year-old sister. I have my own car, and since we both attend the same high school, I'm expected to take her to school with me. My sister, great as she is, has absolutely no sense of urgency when it comes to being on time. She'll deliberately refuse to get out of bed in the morning, takes half an hour minimum to do her hair, and spends so much time primping that she forgets to do necessary things like packing her lunch or taking her medication. I have to go out of my way to wake her up several times in the morning because she refuses to use her alarm and has broken several alarm clocks by throwing them across the room when they go off. I, on the other hand, am annoyingly punctual, and it stresses me out to no end when I'm late because of her. Every single time I've been late this year has been because of her. I'll spend several minutes sitting in my car waiting for her before she comes running out, only to remember that she forgot something and will spend more time looking. I've been late a total of 6 times and end up cutting it close almost every day. My school has a policy that 8 tardies and 1 quarter gives an automatic 3-day suspension. Despite constantly trying to talk to her about it and express that I need her to be on time, she hasn't made any effort. My parents are no help. One day I was waiting in my car for her, nervously tapping my foot and waiting while she dallied. I, looking at the clock, realized I'd have to leave right away to be able to make it on time and decided I'd had enough. I backed out of the driveway and left without her. About 20 minutes later, I got calls from both her and my parents. My mom and sister were furious that I had left her at home and that my mom had to give her a ride. My dad said that he thought it was hilarious and supported me in leaving her. I thought it was totally fair. This way, my sister had to face the consequences of her actions without dragging me down with her. However, many of my friends and family are adamant that it was a jerk move. Am I the jerk? Edit for correction. Thanks to all the positive words. Just wanted to get one thing straight. My sister does not have ADHD. She has an unrelated medical condition that leads to her taking medication in the morning. She's gone through screening for other things before, so we're positive she doesn't have it. It's simply her mindset. Well, what would you do? Would you leave without her? Or would you keep being late because of her? Please let us know. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.